Within you, there is a library. In this library are thousands of books, each one shouting for your attention. There is the heavy, leather-bound book of past regrets, its pages dog-eared and stained. There is the thin, frantic paperback of future anxieties, its binding cracked from being opened too many times. There are shelves upon shelves of volumes written by the voices of others, the expectations of society, the dogmas you were taught, each one dictating who you should be, what you must want, and how you ought to feel. And you have spent a lifetime reading them, trying to find your own story in their borrowed words. But deep in the quietest, most dust-filled wing of this library, there is another book. It has no title. Its cover is plain, worn smooth by a patience you cannot comprehend. It is not written in a language you can read with your eyes, but in a code you can only decipher with your stillness. This is the book of your own being, and because you cannot read it, you believe it to be empty, so you turn away, and you continue your search in the world outside. You collect other people's words, you listen to podcasts, you attend seminars, you scroll through endless advice, stacking knowledge like bricks around an empty center. You become a masterful librarian of borrowed wisdom, able to quote and analyze and debate. Yet when the night is quiet and the house is still, you feel the crushing weight of all these books, and the silence from that one untitled volume feels like a void. There is a profound exhaustion in this search, a spiritual weariness that comes not from effort, but from effort profoundly misplaced. We have been taught to be hunters of truth, to seek it, to capture it, to own it. But what if the most fundamental truth has never been hiding? What if you have been asking the wrong question all along? What if the purpose of the search is not to find, but to become findable? This is an invitation to stop, to cease the frantic expedition. It is a call to walk out of the bustling marketplace of external answers, to step back inside your own library, and to walk past all the shouting volumes. The journey inward is not about acquiring more. It is about becoming less cluttered, less noisy, less defined by what you are not. It is about learning the art of stillness, of creating a silence so profound, so resonant, that you can finally hear the subtle sound of a single, ancient page turning within you. Because the rarest book in the universe is not found by a seeker. It is not earned through ambition or conquered by intellect. It discovers you when you are finally quiet enough to be found. It reveals itself, not when you are looking for it, but when you are finally, truly ready to listen. The journey does not begin with a step forward, but with the simple, courageous recognition of the noise. Not the noise of the city, the traffic, or the screen, but the deeper, more relentless noise within. It is the cacophony of borrowed words. Before you could even form your own sentences, the world began filling you with its own. You were an open space, a silent field, and the seeds of other people's conclusions were planted in you before you even knew you were a garden. These were the first borrowed words. Be good, don't cry, work hard, this is right, that is wrong. They were not guidance, they were inscriptions carved into the soft wood of your nascent consciousness. As you grew, your intellect, hungry for structure and safety, became a masterful collector of these inscriptions. It sought out more sophisticated words, more complex frameworks. It discovered philosophies, religions, political ideologies, and the endless glittering buffet of the self-help industry. Your mind became a museum of ideas, a library of quotations. When you felt lost, you reached for a Stoic maxim. When you felt anxious, you recited a Buddhist teaching. When you felt angry, you adopted the language of a psychological theory to diagnose yourself and others. This is a subtle and powerful trap. The mind, in its quest for security, mistakes the accumulation of information for the arrival of wisdom. It builds a fortress of concepts, and from within these walls, it feels intelligent, prepared, and safe. To be able to label an experience, this is my ego acting up. This is a cognitive distortion. This is the universe testing me, provides a profound, albeit illusory, sense of control. We construct an identity, a self, from these fragments. We say, I am a minimalist, and so we follow the rules of minimalism. We say, I am a rationalist, and so we distrust our intuition. We wear these labels like armor. Forgetting that armor, while protective, also prevents us from ever truly touching the world or being touched by it. We have outsourced the sacred task of thinking for ourselves. We have allowed our inner world to be colonized by the thoughts and conclusions of others, no matter how wise or well-intentioned they were. We live in a second-hand reality, experiencing life through a filter of pre-digested meaning. The tragedy is that we are often proud of this. We are proud of the books we have read, the teachers we follow, the complex ideas we can articulate. But all of this is a magnificent distraction, an elaborate defense mechanism against facing the terrifying, liberating truth of our own inner emptiness, our own fundamental state of not knowing. Herein lies the great internal conflict. There is a part of you, a deep and silent current beneath the noisy surface, that yearns for something real. It longs for a truth that is not read in a book, but felt in the bones. It is a thirst for authenticity, for an experience of life that is direct, unmediated, and uniquely your own. This is the quiet call of the rare book, the one without a title. It whispers to you in moments of stillness, watching a sunset, holding a newborn, or in the dead of night when all the conceptual fortresses crumble. But another part of you, the part that has become the librarian and the guard of the fortress, is terrified of this. The ego, which is nothing more than a collage of these borrowed words and memories, understands that its very survival depends on the noise. If you were to let go of all the ideas you have collected, all the beliefs you have adopted, all the labels you wear, what would be left? The question itself sends a shiver of fear through the system. The fear of the void, the fear of being nothing, of knowing nothing. It is this fear that keeps you reaching for the next book, the next podcast, the next guru. It is a hunger that cannot be sated, because you are not feeding a genuine need for nourishment, you are feeding a fear. The consumption of information becomes an addiction, a way to avoid the withdrawal symptoms of sitting in silence with your own unqualified self. There is a deceptive comfort in quoting the wise. When you speak the words of Marcus Aurelius, you stand behind his shield of authority. When you share a concept from a spiritual teacher, you borrow their light. It feels safer than standing naked in the arena of your own life, speaking your own simple, unproven truth. What if your truth is foolish? What if it is wrong? What if no one applauds? The borrowed words protect you from this vulnerability. They keep you a student, a commentator, a critic, but never the author of your own existence. This conflict is the engine of modern discontent. The soul yearns for the raw, untamed wilderness of direct experience, while the mind clings to the safety of its curated, well-labeled garden. The breakthrough, the first true step on the path, is the realization of a simple, revolutionary message. Genuine wisdom is not an additive process, but a subtractive one. The path does not lead to a library overflowing with every book ever written. It leads to a clearing in the forest. It is not about learning more, but about unlearning, with great courage, everything that is not truly yours. It is the process of discerning your own skin from the many coats you have been given to wear. A coat can be beautiful, it can be useful, it can keep you warm, but it is not you. It can be taken off, it can be replaced. Your skin, however, is alive. It breathes, it feels, it scars, it heals. It is the sensitive, living boundary between you and the world. Authentic wisdom is like your skin. It is not a set of ideas you hold. It is a way of being that holds you. It is not a concept. It is a living, breathing perception. Michelangelo was once asked how he created his statue of David. He replied, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." This must be your approach. You must be willing to chip away at the marble of borrowed beliefs, the stone of secondhand knowledge, to set free the unique form that is you. How do you begin this process of carving? You start by starving the noise. You must practice the art of the information fast. For one day, or even just for one afternoon, declare a moratorium on input. No books, no podcasts, no news, no scrolling through feeds for advice or inspiration, no seeking answers from any source outside of yourself. Turn off the external speakers that are so easy to identify. Then, your only task is to sit with what remains. It will be uncomfortable. The silence you create will be immediately filled by the clamor of the internal speakers, the voices of anxiety, of judgment, of planning, of rehearsing. Your mind, addicted to stimulation, will scream for a fix. You will feel a powerful urge to pick up your phone, to turn on the television, to do anything to escape the discomfort of your own unfiltered presence. Your task is not to fight this internal noise. To fight it is to create more noise. Your task is to simply observe it, as you would observe clouds passing in the sky. Notice the impulse. Notice the thought that arises, "This is boring. I should be productive. I wonder what's happening in the world." Notice it without judgment. See it for what it is, a borrowed program running automatically. See it as the music from one of the many speakers in the room of your mind. You do not need to analyze the music or dance to it or turn up its volume. You simply notice that it is playing. This act of pure, detached observation is the beginning of freedom. It creates a tiny wedge of space between you, the silent observer, and the thought, the noise. In this space, power is reclaimed. In this space, you stop being the victim of your own mind and start becoming its witness. Each thought, each belief, each opinion you have absorbed from the outside world is a speaker playing someone else's song in the sacred hall of your consciousness. The cacophony has been so loud for so long that you have forgotten what your own silence sounds like. The information fast is the act of walking up to one of these speakers. You look at it, you see where its power cord is plugged in, and you gently, deliberately pull the plug. You don't smash the speaker in anger. You don't curse it for playing. You simply disconnect it from its power source. The aim is not to achieve a perfect, pristine silence overnight. That is a violent and unrealistic goal. The aim, for now, is simply to create a small clearing, to turn off just one speaker, to create a single, precious moment of unborrowed air to breathe. In that tiny pause between the endless tracks of conditioned thought, you might hear something else, a faint signal, a low hum. It is the sound of your own resonant frequency, a note that has been playing beneath the orchestra of noise all along. It is the first subtle rustle of the page of the silent book. You have recognized the noise. Now, you learn to create the clearing where a new kind of listening becomes possible. After you begin to quiet the external static, after the relentless shouting of borrowed words begins to subside, you do not find immediate peace. You do not suddenly float in a blissful, empty space. Instead, you become aware of a different, more ancient force. It is not a sound, but a pressure, a silent, immense pull. You have been so accustomed to its presence that you mistook it for the nature of reality itself. Like a deep-sea creature who does not know it is under the weight of an ocean. This is the gravity of the unseen anchor. It is the dead weight of your own unexamined history, lodged deep in the silt of your subconscious mind. This anchor was forged in the quiet moments of your childhood. It was cast not from dramatic, overt commands, but from the silent, powerful language of atmosphere and inference. It was formed from the anxious sigh your father let out when the bills arrived, forging a belief in you that life is a struggle and scarcity is fundamental. It was molded by the way your mother's love was offered most brightly when you achieved, installing a core program that dictates affection must be earned, that your worth is conditional upon your performance. It was shaped by the unspoken tensions in your home, teaching you that real feelings are dangerous and must be suppressed, that conflict is to be avoided at all costs. These are not mere memories. They are foundational beliefs. They are the operating system running in the background of your every decision, your every perception. They are the invisible axioms from which you build the geometry of your life. I am not good enough. The world is not a safe place. I must not make mistakes. I will ultimately be abandoned. True success is for other people. These are not sentences you consciously repeat. They are far more insidious. They are the very color of the lens through which you view the world. You do not think these thoughts. You think from them. They are the invisible gravity that ensures your life orbits around a familiar, often painful, center. And the most potent aspect of this anchor is that it is unseen. Its work is done in the dark. On the surface, on the deck of your conscious mind, you are a willing sailor. You read books on navigation. You chart courses to new destinations, a healthier relationship, a more fulfilling career, a state of inner peace. You hoist the sails of your intention. You feel the wind of your desire, and you believe with all your heart that you are setting sail. Yet the ship barely moves. It groans and strains, but remains stubbornly, maddeningly, close to the same old shore. This is the source of one of life's most profound and painful conflicts. It is the feeling of driving a powerful car with the emergency brake pulled tight. You press the accelerator of willpower, the engine of your desire roars. You burn immense amounts of emotional and mental fuel, but you only inch forward, the smell of burning rubber filling the air. You see others sailing past you, and you are consumed by a corrosive mix of confusion and self-blame. Why am I so lazy? Why do I lack discipline? Why do I keep sabotaging my own success? You berate yourself, you whip the horses of your resolve harder, you try new techniques, new strategies, new affirmations, all in a desperate attempt to overpower this invisible drag. You get close to a promotion, and you inexplicably miss a deadline. You start a new healthy habit, and after a few weeks, you find yourself back in old patterns without even knowing how it happened. You meet a kind and loving partner, and you feel an irresistible urge to find fault, to create distance, to prove that it could never work. This is not a failure of character. It is the anchor, doing its job perfectly. Its sole purpose is to keep you safe, and its definition of safety is the familiar harbor of your past, no matter how painful or limiting that harbor may be. The conscious mind yearns for the open ocean of possibility, but the unconscious, holding the chain, whispers, "The sea is full of monsters. The storms are real. We survived here. Do not leave." This internal war, this grinding opposition between your conscious will and your unconscious programming, is the source of a vast and constant drain on your life force, leaving you perpetually exhausted without ever understanding the true nature of the battle you are fighting. The great liberation, the turning of the tide, does not come from more effort. It does not come from a stronger will or a more powerful engine. The battle is not won by pressing the accelerator to the floor until the engine breaks. Freedom comes from a radical shift in perspective, from doing to seeing. You cannot begin a new voyage while you are still secretly, unconsciously chained to the old dock. The primary task is not to break the chain, but to find it. The work is to trace that heavy, rusted link from the straining deck of your present-day frustrations down into the murky, silent waters of your own history. The moment you see the anchor, the moment you can name the core belief that holds you, its power is cut in half. An unseen force is a god, a tyrant, a ghost that haunts you. A seen force is simply a problem to be solved. A hidden enemy is undefeatable. A known enemy is merely a challenge. The simple act of shining the light of awareness into the depths changes everything. It moves the problem from the realm of mysterious, unchangeable fate into the realm of conscious choice. So how do you lower this lantern? How do you begin to see the shape of your own anchor? You start with an act of radical honesty. Take a piece of paper or simply a quiet, uninterrupted moment. Complete the following sentences with the very first thought that arises. Do not censor. Do not edit. Do not judge. Let the raw, unfiltered truth of your inner world spill onto the page. I always seem to. I can never. When it comes to money, I believe that it is. When it comes to love, I secretly expect. In order to survive, I must. I am the kind of person who is just not. Look at these statements. Feel their density. They are not just words. They are declarations. They are the constitution of your private universe. Now, for each statement, ask a single piercing question. a question that is not meant for your intellect, but for your soul. Ask, who said this first? Do not search for a logical, linear answer. Let your mind drift. Let images and feelings arise. As you look at the belief, I must not make mistakes. Do you hear your teacher's sharp voice? Do you feel the shame of a childhood failure? As you read, love is something you have to earn. Do you see the strained look on a parent's face? A look that only softened when you brought home a good report card? Trace the belief back to its emotional origin. Feel the atmosphere of the room where it was born. The goal of this excavation is not to blame. Blame is a useless indulgence that only forges new chains. The goal is to understand. The goal is to see, with absolute clarity, that this belief you have carried as a universal truth, as a fundamental law of reality, is not true. It is a fossil. It is the echo of someone else's fear. It is the scar tissue that formed around a young and tender wound. It is a piece of history, not a decree of destiny. This anchor has been sunk for decades in the mud of your being. You have only ever felt its pull, its inexplicable resistance. You have cursed the ship and the sea and the captain, never knowing the real cause was buried deep beneath you. The process of inquiry, of asking, who said this first, is the act of lowering a bright lantern into those dark waters. As the light descends, it begins to illuminate the shape of this thing. At first, it may look monstrous, a terrifying leviathan from the deep. You may feel a wave of sadness, anger, or grief as you recognize its form and understand how long it has held you. Do not turn away. Stay with the light. Let it shine. As your awareness grows stronger, you see it for what it truly is. Not a monster, not a curse, just a piece of old, rusted metal. It is heavy, yes. It is deeply embedded, yes. But the most important realization of all dawns upon you. It is not a part of the ship. It was never a part of you. It is a foreign object, attached by a chain of unexamined belief, and anything that is attached can, with patience and skill, be released. The long, difficult work of raising that anchor cannot begin until you have first sailed inward, lantern in hand, and dared to look upon the very thing that has been holding your life in place. Having glimpsed the anchor, having felt the profound, silent gravity of your own history, the immediate, instinctual reaction is to recoil. It is to turn the speakers in your mind back on, louder than before, to drown out the unsettling discovery you have made in the deep. The mind craves the familiar anesthetic of noise, the comforting chaos of busyness, as a balm for the wound of self-awareness. It whispers, this is too much. This is too heavy. Let us get back to work, back to scrolling, back to planning, back to anything but this. But the path forward, the only way to truly address the anchor, does not lie in more distraction. It lies in building the one place where you have the stability and clarity to do the work. It requires you to become a master of a forgotten skill. It requires you to learn the architecture of your silence. We are terrified of silence. We have been conditioned to be. In the modern world, silence is not golden. It is a void, an absence, a sign that something is wrong. An unanswered text, a pause in conversation, an empty schedule. These things trigger a low-grade panic, and so we fill every available space with sound and data. We listen to podcasts while we cook, check emails while we wait in line, and scroll through other people's lives before we sleep and as soon as we awaken. This is more than a habit. It is a defense strategy, because when the external noise ceases, we are forced to confront the internal noise, and this is what we truly fear. For silence is not empty. It is pregnant. It is teeming with all the thoughts, feelings, and truths we have spent our lives trying to outrun. When you dare to be silent, you are immediately met by the committee of your own inner critics. First, there is the judge, the relentless prosecutor, who replays your every mistake, your every awkward moment, your every failure, presenting them as evidence for your fundamental inadequacy. Then there is the worrier, the anxious futurist, who spins endless, terrifying scenarios of what could go wrong, demanding that you prepare for every conceivable catastrophe. There is the ghost of regret, who weeps for paths not taken and mourns for relationships lost, tethering you to a past that cannot be changed. And there is the restless planner, the frantic project manager of your life, who insists that every unstructured moment is a moment wasted, filling your mind with to-do lists, optimizations, and schedules. We use busyness as a shield against this committee. We tell ourselves we are productive, we are important, we are in demand. But for many of us, busyness is simply a sophisticated form of hiding. We are terrified that if we stop moving, the committee will catch us. And what they will tell us, what we will feel in their presence, is the raw, unfiltered truth of our own pain, our own loneliness, our own mortality. Silence forces an encounter with the unedited self, and we have been taught to fear who we might meet in that quiet room. This leads to a deep and frustrating internal conflict. On one hand, you know that silence is good for you. You have read the articles, you have heard the wisdom, you may even have an app on your phone that promises to teach you peace. You understand intellectually that you need to unplug and recharge. Yet when you actually try, the experience can feel like a special kind of torture. You sit down determined, you close your eyes, within 10 seconds your nose itches. A forgotten email from 3 days ago screams for your attention. You suddenly feel an urgent need to reorganize your bookshelf. An embarrassing memory from high school surfaces with crystal clear clarity, making you physically cringe. The silence itself feels loud, buzzing, and oppressive. The anxiety level in your body begins to rise, a frantic energy with nowhere to go. The urge to get up, to check your phone, to do anything becomes a tidal wave of impulse. You last for 3 minutes, or maybe 5, before you give in, flooded with a sense of relief, but also with a subtle, nagging feeling of failure. This experience reinforces a core belief. I am not good at this. My mind is too busy. Peace is for other people. And so you retreat back to the familiar, comforting noise, and the cycle of avoidance continues. The problem lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of silence itself. We approach it as if it were a pristine, pre-existing state of peace that we are failing to locate. We treat it like a hidden cove on a map, and we feel frustrated when we cannot find it. We believe the goal is to find silence, but silence is not found. It is built. It is not an emptiness to be discovered. It is a space to be constructed, right in the middle of the noisy construction site of your mind. You are not a seeker of a lost artifact called peace. You are the architect of your own inner sanctuary. This shift in perspective is the key that unlocks the door. An architect does not despair when they arrive at a messy, cluttered, noisy plot of land. They do not see it as a sign of failure. They see it as the raw material. They see it as the beginning. They know that before the cathedral can rise, the ground must be cleared, a foundation must be laid, and the structure must be built, brick by patient brick. Your practice, then, is not to go searching for a grand, silent cathedral. It is to begin laying the first foundation stone. You do this by creating a 5-minute room. For 5 minutes each day, you will build a space with a single, inviolable rule. No external input. Put your phone in another room. Turn off the television, the music, the podcast. Set a timer for 5 minutes. And sit. Your goal is not to have a quiet mind. Your goal is not to feel peaceful. Your goal is not to stop thinking. These are the goals of a seeker, and you are now an architect. Your one and only goal is to stay in the room for the full 5 minutes. That is the entire practice. Within this room, you have a specific job. You are the impartial security guard at the door of your own awareness. As the members of the committee, the judge, the warrior, the ghost arrive at the door, your job is not to fight them or wrestle them to the ground. Your job is simply to notice their arrival. Ah, the judge is here with his usual list of grievances. Hello, worry. I see you've brought your portfolio of future disasters. Regret, good to see you. You are right on schedule. You acknowledge their presence. You see them clearly, but you do not have to serve them tea. You do not have to engage them in conversation. You do not have to believe their stories. You are the guard at the door, not the host of the party. You simply stand your post, witnessing everything that comes and goes while your body remains in the room. You do this for 5 minutes. When the timer rings, you have succeeded, no matter how chaotic your mind was. Consistency is infinitely more important than intensity. Building this room for 5 minutes every day is far more powerful than trying and failing to build it for an hour once a month. You are not training for a marathon of silence. You are patiently laying one brick every single day. At first, this inner room you are building will feel cold and Spartan. The walls will seem thin, and they will echo with the anxious voices of the committee. The floor will feel hard and unwelcoming. This is normal. It is an unfurnished space, a construction site. But every time you sit for your 5 minutes, every time you stay despite the discomfort, you are adding something to it. Each time you notice a judgmental thought without believing it, you are laying down a soft rug of acceptance. Each time you allow an anxious feeling to exist in your body without immediately reacting to it, you are reinforcing the walls with the steel of resilience. Each time you let a memory of regret surface and pass without drowning in it, you are installing a window, letting in the fresh air of compassion for your past self. Over time, through patient daily construction, this room transforms. It ceases to be a cell of torture and becomes a sanctuary. It becomes the quiet, stable center of your being. It is the workshop where you can safely examine the anchor. It is the observatory from which you can watch the weather of your emotions without being swept away by the storm. It is the studio where, in the growing quiet, you can finally begin to hear the faintest whispers of the rare book. You do not find this place, you build it, brick by brick, breath by breath, 5 minutes at a time. As you spend more time in the silent room you have built, as your eyes adjust to the quiet, interior light, you will begin to notice the landscape of that inner space. You will see more than just the committee of voices that greet you at the door. You will start to notice the very walls of the room itself. You will see the fine fissures, the deep cracks, the places where the structure was damaged long ago and healed imperfectly. These are your scars. Our first deeply conditioned instinct is to hide them. It is to rush for plaster and paint, to cover them up, to present a smooth, unbroken surface to ourselves and to the world. We live in a culture that worships the pristine, the flawless, the unblemished. We are taught that scars are evidence of damage, symbols of weakness, marks of failure. They are the chapters of our life story we wish we could tear out. But the great secret, the one that begins to unfold in the stillness, is that the language of your deepest self, the ink used to write the rare book, is not found on perfect pages. The most profound truths are spoken only by scars. Psychologically, our relationship with our own woundedness is complex. We learn early on to suppress what is painful. It is a brilliant and necessary survival mechanism. When an experience is too overwhelming, when a heartbreak is too shattering, when a failure is too shameful, the mind, in its wisdom, walls off that experience. It quarantines the pain to allow the rest of the system to continue functioning. We put the memory in a box, label it "Do Not Open," and store it in the deep, dark basement of the psyche. We believe it is gone, but it is not gone. It is simply buried alive, and from the basement it exerts a constant, subtle pressure. It radiates a low-frequency energy of anxiety, or a dull ache of depression, or a sudden, inexplicable rage. It becomes the unseen anchor. It becomes the self-sabotaging pattern. We build our entire adult lives on top of this unstable ground, wondering why we feel so unsteady, so fragile, so perpetually braced for impact. We have become curators of a personal museum where the most significant exhibits are hidden away in storage, shrouded in shame. We create a public narrative of our lives that is carefully edited, presenting only the triumphs, the strengths, the successes. We believe that if anyone saw the hidden exhibits, if they saw the scars, they would see us as we secretly see ourselves, broken, flawed, and unworthy. This creates a painful internal war. A part of you, the conscious, striving self, longs for a perfect history. You indulge in the fantasy of a different pasta childhood without trauma, a youth without mistakes, a past relationship without heartbreak. You drain your present moment energy by fighting a war against what has already happened, a battle you can never, ever win. This longing for an impossible, unblemished past is a source of immense and constant suffering. At the same time, another, deeper part of you knows the truth. It knows that you are who you are, not in spite of your scars, but because of them. It knows that your compassion was born from having your heart broken. It knows that your resilience was forged in the fire of your greatest failure. It knows that your wisdom comes not from the easy answers you were given, but from the difficult questions you were forced to live. This is the central conflict, the shame you feel about your wounds versus the undeniable reality that those wounds have been your most profound teachers. You want to disown the very experiences that have carved out the depth and texture of your own soul. You live in a state of cognitive dissonance, wanting to present a flawless resume to the world while knowing that your true qualifications are written in the language of your scars. The moment of transformation, the ray of light that cuts through this conflict, is a radical reframing of the meaning of a scar. A scar is not a symbol of the injury. A scar is the testament to its healing. It is the announcement that the wound is no longer open. It means that life, in its fierce and tenacious wisdom, has closed the breach. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a document of your strength. An unbroken surface has no story to tell. It has never been tested, never been challenged, never been to war. A scarred surface, however, has survived. It has faced adversity and has the emblem to prove it. The pristine, empty pages of an imagined perfect life are blank. They are silent. The true story, the living text of the rare book that is you, is written in the ink of your tears. It is carved by the sharp edges of your challenges. Your scars are the sacred calligraphy of your soul. Each curve and line a letter in the alphabet of your unique becoming. To be ashamed of your scars is to be ashamed of the story of your own heroic survival. How then do you learn to read this sacred language? You begin with an act of gentle, courageous inquiry. It is an alchemical practice designed to transmute the lead of old pain into the gold of present wisdom. Choose a scar, not the deepest, most traumatic one to start, but a memory that still holds a charge, a failure in your career, a painful rejection, a loss that left you feeling diminished. In the safety of your silent room, allow this memory to arise. Do not push it away. Do not wallow in it. Simply let it be present as you would allow a guest into your home. First, acknowledge the old question, the one your mind has asked 1,000 times. Why did this happen to me? Feel the energy of this question. Notice where it leads. It almost always leads to a sense of powerlessness, of victimhood, of a story that ends in a dead end. It is a question that seeks blame, either of the world or of yourself. Having acknowledged it, gently set it aside. Now, with a spirit of genuine, compassionate curiosity, begin to ask a new set of questions. Ask, what strength was forged in me during that fire that could have been created in no other way? Ask, what did I learn about myself or about the world from this experience? Ask, did this wound in some way break my heart open to more compassion rather than just breaking it apart? Did it cultivate a deeper humility in me? Did it burn away an illusion I was holding on to? Do not strain for an answer. Just let these questions hang in the space of your awareness. You are not trying to create a neat, positive story to paper over the pain. The pain was real, and you must honor that. The purpose is to widen your perspective. It is to see that the event was not just one thing, a painful ending. It was also perhaps a powerful, albeit brutal, beginning. You are metabolizing your history, extracting the nutrients from it, so that it can become a source of power for your present rather than a poison. In Japan, there is an ancient art form called kintsugi, which means to join with gold. When a beloved piece of poteria bowl, a cup, a vase is broken, the artisans do not throw the shards away. They do not try to glue the pieces back together with an invisible adhesive to hide the cracks. Instead, they meticulously mend the object, and they use a special lacquer mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum. The philosophy of kintsugi is that the piece is more beautiful, more valuable, and stronger for having been broken. The cracks are not seen as flaws to be concealed. They are revered as a fundamental part of the object's history. The lines of breakage are highlighted, celebrated, illuminated in shimmering gold. The story of the object's wounding and its healing becomes its most beautiful and compelling feature. This is the sacred art you must learn to practice on your own soul. You are that piece of pottery. You have been dropped. You have been shattered. The path to wholeness is not to desperately try to recreate the person you were before you were broken. That person is gone forever. The path is to lovingly gather the pieces of who you are now and to mend yourself with the gold of your own awakened consciousness. Your self-awareness, your self-compassion, your newfound understanding, this is the gold. You trace the lines of your trauma not with shame, but with reverence. You look upon your scars and see not ugliness, but the shimmering story of your resilience. They become your golden seams. They are the undeniable proof that you are not valuable in spite of your wounds, but perhaps because of them. They are the sacred text, now shimmering with a beautiful, internal light inside the quiet room of your being, waiting to be read. After you have begun to trace the golden seams of your scars, you become acutely aware of the intricate structures you have built to conceal them from the world. You notice the carefully constructed facade, the polished performance, the public self you present for approval. This is your persona, the social mask. And upon the brow of this mask, you have allowed the world to place a crown. It is a beautiful crown, shimmering with the jewels of other people's praise, their admiration, their recognition. It is the crown of being seen as successful, as capable, as kind, as strong, as intelligent. You have spent a lifetime striving for this crown, believing its attainment would be the ultimate validation of your worth. But now, as you sit in the growing stillness of your inner room, you begin to feel its true nature for the first time. You feel its immense, suffocating pressure. You feel its crushing weight. This is the agony of a borrowed crown. The mask is not an act of deliberate deception. It is an act of desperate survival. It was born in the tender years of your childhood, when you were a small, porous being, wholly dependent on the giants around you for love and safety. You learned with the brilliant intuition of a survivor which parts of you elicited a smile and which ones elicited a frown. You learned that being quiet and compliant earned you the jewel of goodness. You learned that being funny and entertaining earned you the jewel of attention. You learned that achieving and excelling earned you the jewel of pride. And so you began to build. You emphasized the approved parts and you suppressed the disapproved parts. You became the good child, the helper, the achiever, the peacemaker. Your mask was your first great creation, a masterpiece of social adaptation. And because it worked, because it secured you, a measure of love and a place in the tribe, you never learned to take it off. The tragedy of the persona is that the actor forgets he is acting. The role consumes the self. You have played the part of the competent professional for so long that you are terrified of admitting, even to yourself, that you often feel lost and uncertain. You have worn the mask of the strong, resilient one for so long that you do not know how to ask for help when you are crumbling inside. You have performed the role of the easygoing, agreeable friend for so long that the thought of expressing a raw, inconvenient truth fills you with terror. Maintaining this performance requires a colossal expenditure of life energy. It demands constant vigilance. In every conversation, a part of your mind is monitoring, how am I coming across? Do they like me? Was that the right thing to say? You live in a state of chronic, low-grade anxiety, perpetually afraid of being found out, of the mask slipping and revealing the messy, contradictory, vulnerable human being behind it. You are an actor who is on stage 24 hours a day, an artist who can never go home and wash the paint from his face. It is a state of profound exhaustion, a quiet bleeding out of the spirit. This creates an excruciating internal conflict, a silent war between the mask and the soul. The soul, your authentic self, yearns for expression. It hungers to be seen, known, and loved for what it truly is, not for the perfection of its performance. It craves the simple, liberating relief of putting down the shield, of being able to say, I don't know, or I am scared, or I need help. There are moments when the soul, in its desperation, cracks the mask. In a moment of crisis, or deep grief, or unexpected love, a genuine emotion breaks through the polished facade. These moments are both terrifying and exhilarating. They are a glimpse of a different way of being, a life of unarmored authenticity. But the persona, the guardian of your perceived safety, immediately rushes to repair the damage. It is driven by the most primal fear known to a social creature, the fear of rejection, of exile, of abandonment. The mask was built to secure your place in the tribe. To remove it feels like risking everything. The questions that arise from this fear are paralyzing. If my partner knew my deepest insecurities, would they still love me? If my colleagues saw how much I struggle, would I lose my job? If I stop being the one who holds everyone together, will they all leave me? This is the razor's edge on which you walk. On one side is the slow suffocation of inauthenticity, the quiet death of 1,000 daily performances. On the other side is the acute terror of social annihilation. And so you remain frozen, believing this is the only choice, to live a lie or to die alone. But the light of awareness reveals a third path. It illuminates the fact that you have been striving for the wrong kind of royalty. You have bent your back, contorted your soul, and exhausted your spirit to earn the heavy crown of external validation. But there is another crown. It is the crown of self-acceptance. This crown is invisible. It is weightless. It is not bestowed upon you by a fickle audience, but is forged in the quiet fire of your own awareness. You are the one who places it upon your own head. It is not made of gold and jewels plundered from the opinions of others, but of the simple, radical acceptance of all that you are your light and your shadow, your competence and your confusion, your beauty and your scars. The borrowed crown of external approval makes you a perpetual subject, a servant to the whims and judgments of the world. But the invisible crown of self-acceptance makes you a true sovereign. It makes you the gentle, undisputed ruler of your own inner kingdom. True power is not the ability to impress others. It is the courage to be unimpressively, unapologetically yourself. You do not achieve this sovereignty by suddenly ripping the mask from your face in a single dramatic gesture. That is an act of violence against a part of you that has worked tirelessly to protect you. Instead, you gently, patiently begin to loosen the strings. You do this through small, consistent acts of authentic rebellion. You perform, each day, one tiny act of personal sovereignty. It is an act that is for you and you alone, done without consideration for applause or approval. The practice is simple. Wear the brightly colored scarf you adore but have always kept in the back of your closet because you feared it was too loud or unprofessional. Say a gentle but firm no to a request or an invitation that you do not have the energy or desire to accept, and resist the urge to offer a long, convoluted, apologetic explanation. In a low-stakes conversation with a friend, express a genuine opinion or preference, even if it differs slightly from theirs. Allow yourself 15 minutes to engage in an activity that has no productive value whatsoever, listening to an old album from start to finish, watching the clouds from your window, sketching aimlessly in a notebook, and do it without an ounce of guilt. As you perform this small, authentic act, observe the wave of fear that arises. Notice the voice of the persona, the guardian, as it screams its warnings. They will think you are selfish. They will think you are weird. You are being difficult. Notice the fear. Feel it in your body. Thank the mask for its decades of service, for its tireless effort to keep you safe. And then, do the authentic act anyway. This is how you retrain your nervous system. Cell by cell, breath by breath, you teach your entire being that it is, in fact, safe to be you. Your persona, this mask, is like your shadow. It is an unavoidable consequence of being a solid form in a world of light. For much of your life, you have lived in a state of anxious negotiation with this shadow. Sometimes, you have tried to run from it, only to find it faithfully attached to your heels. At other times, you have tried to stand on it, to suppress it, to pretend it does not exist. But this has only forced you into awkward, unnatural postures, your life a constant contortion. The path of authenticity is not about trying to eliminate your shadow. A shadowless being does not exist. The path is simply to turn and face the sun. The sun is your own inner truth, your core of being, the source of your own light. When you turn to face the sun, something miraculous happens. The shadow does not vanish. It falls directly behind you. You are no longer looking at it. You are no longer contorting your body to avoid it. You are no longer living in reaction to it. It is still there, a part of your story, but your attention, your energy, and your direction are now oriented toward the light. In the warmth of this inner sun, the borrowed crown melts away. You walk forward, not as a perfect, flawless being, but as a whole one, facing the light with your own unique and undeniable history trailing peacefully, naturally, behind you. Once you begin to loosen the borrowed crown, once you turn to face the sun of your own truth and allow the shadow of your persona to fall behind you, you are met with a new and equally daunting landscape. You have journeyed inward, examining the cacophony of borrowed words, the gravity of the unseen anchor, the architecture of your silence, and the golden language of your scars. You have done the courageous work of looking at what has been, but now, as you turn your gaze from the past to the future, you encounter something that can be even more terrifying. You see the unwritten pages. You see the vast, silent, intimidating expanse of what is to come. You have spent a lifetime trying to escape the prison of your history, only to find yourself standing at the precipice of the terrifying freedom of your future. Our minds are not designed for this freedom. The human brain is, at its core, a prediction machine. Its primary function, honed over millions of years of evolution, is to take data from the past and use it to create models and predictions about the future. It does this for one reason: to keep you safe. A known threat is manageable. A predictable path is safe. The mind's mantra is, if I can know what is coming, I can control it. And if I can control it, I can survive. This fundamental drive is reinforced by a society that worships certainty. We are taught from a young age to have a plan, the 5-year plan, the career trajectory, the retirement strategy. We build intricate blueprints for our lives, creating detailed maps that chart a course from our present location to a future destination called happiness or success. We operate under the delusion that if we just follow the map perfectly, if we make all the right turns, we are guaranteed to arrive safely at our desired port. Anxiety, in its purest form, is simply a malfunction of this prediction machine. It is the mind running endless, frantic simulations of negative future outcomes and forcing your body to react as if those outcomes were happening right now. The fear of the unwritten pages is the raw, elemental fuel for every anxious thought. We are afraid fundamentally because we cannot know. We cannot control all the variables. We cannot account for the storms, the unexpected currents, the sudden shifts in the wind. This radical uncertainty feels, to the ego, like a direct threat to its existence. The ego is the map maker, the planner, the controller. The blank page represents the death of its most cherished illusion, the illusion of control. And so, it panics. It floods you with fear, not to harm you, but to drive you back to the safety of the known, even if the known is a prison of misery. This creates a deep, paralyzing internal conflict. A part of you, the part conditioned by fear, desperately craves a map. It wants a system, a guru, a guarantee. It wants someone to say, with absolute authority, if you take this job, you will be fulfilled. If you marry this person, you will be happy. If you follow these 7 steps, your life will be a success. We hunt for certainty, consuming forecasts, expert opinions, and self-help books that promise to decode the future. We want to know that our efforts will not be wasted, that our hearts will not be broken again, that our courage will be rewarded. The agony of this position is that we are asking for something that life, by its very nature, cannot give. This craving for a guaranteed outcome leads to the most tragic of states, paralysis. We stand before the blank page of our lives, the pen of choice in our hand, and we are frozen. The fear of writing the wrong story keeps us from writing anything at all. What if I choose the wrong career and waste my best years? What if I commit to this relationship and it ends in pain, just like the last one? What if I start this creative project and it's a failure? The sheer number of possibilities, combined with the lack of any guarantee, is overwhelming. And so we hesitate. We retreat into the seemingly safe harbor of planning, researching, analyzing, and waiting. We wait for the right time. We wait for a sign. We wait until we feel ready. But these are just sophisticated excuses born of fear. And while we are waiting for a perfect, risk-free story to appear, the pages of our one and only life continue to turn empty. The conflict is between the desire for the safety of a well-lit cage and the soul's yearning for the aliveness of the open sky. The cage is predictable, but it is not life. The sky is vast and uncertain, full of potential storms, but it is the only place a soul can learn to fly. The moment of liberation comes when you fundamentally reframe your relationship with the future. You have been seeing the unwritten pages as a threat. You must learn to see them as a sacred gift. The terror of the blank page and the absolute freedom of the blank page are two sides of the exact same coin. The future is not a destination you must correctly predict in order to arrive at. It is not a puzzle you must solve. It is a creative space that you are invited to live into. The absence of a map is not a curse. It is the universe's ultimate gesture of trust in you. It is the cosmos handing you the pen and saying, I trust you to write the next part. Show me what you will create. This changes your role entirely. You are not a nervous fortune teller, desperately trying to read the tea leaves of what is to come. You are an author with the divine authority to write the next sentence. Your task is not to know the ending. Your task is to simply write the next word with as much courage, love, and authenticity as you can find in this moment. How do you begin to practice this terrifying freedom? You start by taking one small, uncertain step. You conduct a low-stakes experiment in trusting the unknown. This week, make one choice, however minor, where you cannot control or guarantee the outcome. The goal is to consciously choose to act without the comfort of a map. Perhaps you sign up for that pottery class you have been curious about for years without needing to know if you will be any good at it or if it will lead anywhere. You do it for the simple, uncertain act of doing it. Perhaps you finally have that difficult but necessary conversation with a loved one without knowing how they will react or what the outcome will be. You speak your truth simply because it needs to be spoken. Perhaps you dedicate 1 hour to working on that business idea or that novel you have been dreaming of, silencing the part of you that demands to know if it will be a success before you even begin. You give it 1 hour of your life as a gift with no expectation of return. Perhaps you go for a drive or a walk, and at an intersection, you deliberately turn in the direction you know the least, allowing yourself the small adventure of getting a little lost, trusting in your innate ability to find your way home. As you take this small step, pay close attention. Observe your mind's resistance. It will likely scream for a plan, for a guarantee, for a predictable result. It will flood you with a litany of what-ifs. Your practice is to feel this fear, to acknowledge your mind's desperate craving for certainty, and to take the step anyway. Then, after you have acted, notice the feeling in your body. Alongside the familiar hum of anxiety, you may detect a new sensation, a spark of aliveness, a flutter of exhilaration, a quiet sense of expansion. That spark is the feeling of freedom. It is the thrill of knowing that you are the one holding the pen. Imagine your life is a book. The chapters of your past are written. You can reread them, study them, trace their scars with gold. You can learn from them, but you can never change a single word. They are fixed in time. But from this exact moment forward, all the pages are blank. They are pristine, white, and shimmering with a terrifying and beautiful potential. The world will try to sell you pre-written chapters. It will offer you the template for the successful career chapter or the perfect family chapter. It will hand you outlines and formulas, promising you a safe and predictable story that has been approved by the masses. To step into your own sovereignty is to politely refuse these templates. It is to stand before the unwritten pages with the pen held firmly in your own hand, the ink glistening at its tip. You do not need to know the whole plot. You do not need to have every character arc figured out. You only need the courage to touch the pen to the paper and write the next word, and then the next, and then the next. The future is not a script you are handed. It is a story you are co-creating, sentence by sentence, with the ink of your choices, your trust, and your sacred willingness to step into the beautiful, wild, and unknown. You stand at the precipice of the unwritten pages, the vast, silent ocean of the future before you, the heavy, dog-eared volume of the past in your hands. Between these two great gravitational forces, the undertow of what has been and the anxious pull of what might be exists, the storm. This storm is the default state of the untethered human mind. It is a constant, chaotic whirlwind of planning, regretting, anticipating, rehearsing, and remembering. To be lost in this storm is the ordinary human condition. We are ships, built of flesh and bone, tossed on this tumultuous inner sea, rarely experiencing a moment of true calm or clear direction. You have begun the great work. You have built a silent room. You have traced your scars with gold. You have felt the weight of the borrowed crown. You have faced the terror of the blank page. Now, you must learn to find your center in the very heart of the storm itself. You must discover and learn to use the simplest, most powerful, and most profoundly overlooked tool you possess. You must find the anchor of your breath. Our minds are natural time travelers. Neuroscientists speak of a default mode network, which is the state of the brain when it is not focused on a specific, immediate task. This default mode is to wander. It relentlessly drifts back to the past to ruminate on mistakes and hurts, or it rockets forward into the future to simulate potential threats and opportunities. This was once a powerful evolutionary advantage, allowing us to learn from experience and plan for survival. But in our modern world of overstimulation and chronic stress, this magnificent faculty has become a source of profound suffering. We live in a state of perpetual disembodiment. We live in our heads. We have become ghosts in our own lives, narrators of a story rather than the protagonists living it. You eat a delicious meal, but your mind is elsewhere, composing a work email or planning tomorrow's schedule. You are walking through a beautiful forest, but you are not there. You are replaying an argument from yesterday, editing your dialogue, wishing you had said something different. You are with your children, but you are not with them. You are worrying about their future or the bills you have to pay. We are everywhere but here, every when but now. The breath is the antidote to this ghostly existence. It is the one thing that yanks the time-traveling mind back into the present. Why? Because the breath, unlike your thoughts, can only exist in the now. It is physically impossible to take a breath yesterday. It is impossible to exhale a breath tomorrow. Your breath is happening right now. It is the literal, physiological bridge between your thinking mind and your feeling body. It is the thread that stitches the abstract world of thought to the concrete reality of your physical form. Therefore, to bring your conscious awareness to the sensation of your breathing is by definition to bring yourself back to the present moment. This is not a philosophical concept, it is a biological fact. It is the ultimate life hack, hidden in plain sight, performed by your body around 20,000 times a day, mostly without your notice. Herein lies the conflict. The mind, addicted to drama and complexity, finds the breath offensively simple. The stories it spins intricate plots of future disaster. The tragic epics of past injustice are seductive. They are full of emotion, of characters, of high stakes. Engaging with them feels important, necessary, even productive. Worrying feels like you are preparing. Ruminating feels like you are processing. The mind loves to wrestle with these grand problems. And so, when the ancient wisdom suggests that the key to peace lies in simply feeling the air move in and out of your nostrils, the ego scoffs. That's it? It says with contempt. Just breathe? That won't solve my financial problems. That won't mend my broken heart. That is a simplistic fantasy for simpletons. The mind resists the simplicity of the breath because to fully accept it would be to dethrone the ego, which thrives on complexity, control, and the illusion that it can think its way out of the human condition. The conflict is a choice to be made in every moment between indulging the mind's addiction to its own dramatic cinema and returning to the humble, solid, and unwavering reality of the body right here, right now. The core message, the truth that can anchor you in the storm is this: your breath is not just air, it is a compass. In the disorienting, featureless wilderness of your thoughts, amidst the swirling gales of emotion, your breath is the one instrument that always, without fail, points to the magnetic north of the present moment. When you are lost in the labyrinth of future anxieties, when you are haunted by the ghosts of past regrets, you are far from home. Your only true home, the only place where life is actually happening, is now. The practice of returning your attention to the breath over and over again is the practice of coming home. It is the most fundamental act of self-rescue. This is not about escaping your problems or suppressing your thoughts. You cannot stop the storm, but you can drop an anchor in the middle of it. The winds of thought will still howl, the waves of emotion will still crash against your hull, but your ship will hold its center. You will no longer be tossed about at the mercy of every passing squall. From this anchored, centered place, you can then navigate the storm with clarity, courage, and wisdom. How do you use this anchor? You begin with a simple, structured practice that calms the nervous system and focuses the mind. It is called box breathing. Find a comfortable position, either sitting upright or standing. Allow your eyes to gently close or soften your gaze on a point in front of you. First, slowly and completely exhale all the air from your lungs. Let it all go. Now gently inhale through your nose for a slow count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel the air not just in your chest, but deep in your belly. Next, hold the breath at the top of the inhale, in a state of comfortable fullness for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Be still in this pause. Then, slowly and gently, exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel the sensation of release, of letting go. Finally, hold the breath at the bottom of the exhale in the quiet emptiness for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Be still in this silence. That is one complete cycle, one box. Continue this practice for 2, 3, or 5 minutes. Your mind will wander. That is what minds do. When you notice that you are lost in thought, and you will notice, though, not be discouraged, do not judge yourself. In that moment of noticing, you have already succeeded. You have woken up. Gently congratulate yourself for waking up, and then, with kindness, guide your attention back to the count, back to the feeling of the breath, back to the anchor. Imagine your breath as the tide of a great wise ocean. The inhalation is the tide flowing in, filling every cove and inlet of your being with fresh, oxygenated life. The exhalation is the tide flowing out, carrying away what is no longer needed, releasing, cleansing. For your entire life, this tide has been moving in and out, a perfect, silent, rhythmic dance of giving and receiving, mostly without your awareness. You do not have to force this rhythm. You do not control the ocean. Your practice is to simply learn to sit on the shore of your own body and observe its timeless wisdom. The pause after the inhale is the quiet stillness of high tide. The pause after the exhale is the deep, profound silence of low tide. In these two pauses, in the space between the breaths, lies a universe of peace. By aligning your awareness with this rhythm, you are connecting with something far older and wiser than your own fearful, chattering mind. You are connecting with the rhythm of life itself. The same intelligence that pulls the moon and the tides, that turns the seasons, that breathes the ancient forests, is the intelligence that is breathing you in this very moment. You are not a panicked sailor, lost and alone on a hostile sea. You are a wave in the ocean of being, and your breath is the constant, reassuring, physical evidence of your connection to the whole. Whenever you feel lost, whenever the storm rages, return to the tide within. It is always there. It will always bring you back to the solid shore of this present moment. It will always, always bring you home. As you practice anchoring yourself in the present moment with your breath, as you build and inhabit your inner room of silence, a new and subtle capacity begins to emerge. In the quiet you have so patiently cultivated, you start to hear signals that were previously drowned out by the deafening noise of the mind. You begin to sense a guidance system, a quiet knowing that seems to originate from a place deeper than thought. But the arrival of this new sense immediately presents a sophisticated and crucial challenge. How do you distinguish the true signal from the deceptive static? In the inner parliament of your being, many voices clamor for attention. How do you know if the voice you are hearing is the voice of your deepest wisdom or the convincing, masquerading voice of your oldest fear? This is the sacred work of learning to read your inner compass. To do this, you must first understand the distinct nature of these two powerful forces. Fear has a very specific signature. Its primary source of information is the past. It is a historian, a librarian of every wound you have ever sustained. When you face a new situation, fear immediately scans its vast archives for any similar event that ended in pain. It finds the file labeled rejection or failure or loss, and it projects the contents of that old file onto the blank screen of your present reality. Its arguments are logical, rational, and filled with what it presents as incontrovertible evidence. It speaks in the language of grim absolutes. This will never work out because that other thing didn't. You will always be let down because you were let down before. This is far too risky. Remember the pain of the last failure. Fear's entire purpose is survival, and its strategy is to keep you safe by keeping you small. It wants you to remain within the walls of the familiar, even if the familiar is a miserable prison. Its voice is loud, urgent, repetitive, and often frantic. It feels like an alarm bell ringing incessantly. Intuition, or your deep knowing, operates from a completely different source. It does not consult the archives of the past. Its source is the present moment. It is a direct, holistic perception of the reality in front of you, unclouded by the smoky filter of past trauma or future anxiety. Intuition does not argue, debate, or try to convince you with a list of pros and cons. It does not present evidence. It simply presents itself. It arrives as a quiet, clear knowing. It is a resonance in your body, a feeling of rightness, a subtle sense of alignment or dissonance. It is not emotional, like fear. It is calm, steady, and quiet. While fear's agenda is to keep you safe, intuition's agenda is to guide you toward growth and wholeness, even if that path involves uncertainty and risk. Fear is a contraction. Intuition is an expansion. The great confusion arises because fear is an expert mimic. It has learned to disguise its frantic voice as the calm, measured tone of prudence or common sense or being realistic. Because its arguments are rooted in your actual past experiences, they sound incredibly logical and persuasive. Our society has trained us to trust logic and to be suspicious of feelings. As a result, we often mistake the loud, logical, evidence-based shouting of fear for the voice of reason, while we dismiss the quiet, subtle, feeling-based whisper of intuition as being naive, irresponsible, or mere wishful thinking. This leads to a paralyzing internal conflict at every significant crossroads of your life. Imagine an opportunity arises a chance to move to a new city, to start a new creative venture, to enter a new relationship. Immediately, the two voices begin their campaign for your allegiance. Fear starts shouting from the podium. It grabs the microphone and broadcasts its litany of worst-case scenarios. Don't you dare! You're not qualified for that. You'll be lonely in a new city. Remember how your last business failed? Remember how your last relationship ended? It will happen again. Stay here. It's safe here. Don't be a fool. The voice is loud, insistent, and a looping reel of your greatest hits of failure and pain. But beneath that deafening broadcast, if you are quiet enough to notice, there is another signal. Intuition whispers. It doesn't make a counterargument. It simply manifests as a subtle feeling, a quiet sense of yes. a spark of curiosity, a gentle, persistent pull toward the unknown path. It feels like a small, warm light in your chest. You are caught in the middle, torn between the shout and the whisper. The shout seems so much more powerful, so much more rational. The whisper feels fragile, easily dismissed. You crave a clear sign, a booming voice from the heavens, a definitive answer, but you are only met with this confusing inner landscape. And in this state of confusion, more often than not, you default to the loudest voice. You choose the path that fear dictates, the path of safety. You turn down the opportunity, and for a moment, you feel the relief of the alarm bell finally stopping. But this relief is often followed, weeks or months or years later, by the quiet, haunting ache of regret, the ghost of a life you were too afraid to live. The core message, the key to unlocking this paralysis, is this: you must learn to listen not to the content of the voices, but to their quality, to their very texture and tone. Fear shouts. Intuition whispers. Fear is frantic. Intuition is calm. But most importantly, each voice has a distinct physical signature in your body, and your body cannot lie. Fear is always a form of contraction. When you are in the grip of fear, your body physically tightens. Your shoulders hunch, your jaw clenches, your breath becomes shallow, you feel a knot in your stomach or a tightness in your chest. It feels like the walls are closing in. Intuition is always a form of expansion. When you are aligned with your intuition, your body subtly opens. Your shoulders relax, your breath deepens, you feel a sense of warmth or flow in your solar plexus. It feels like space is being created inside you. Your body is the ultimate arbiter, the one who can always tell the two voices apart. You can practice this discernment. When you are facing a decision, find your silent room. Take a few moments to anchor yourself with your breath. Let the initial storm of thought begin to settle. First, consciously hold in your mind the choice that represents fear, the option to stay safe, to retreat, to say no to the opportunity. Fully imagine yourself taking that path. As you do, ask your body, how does this feel? And then listen with your senses. Scan yourself from head to toe. Do you notice the familiar clenching in your gut, the tightness in your throat, the shallow, constricted breathing? Do not judge it. Simply notice the physical sensations. This is the signature of fear. Now, gently let that scenario go. Take a few deep, cleansing breaths, releasing the tension. Then, hold in your mind the other choice, the one that represents growth, the one that is uncertain but also feels alive with possibility. Imagine yourself saying yes to this path, and ask your body again, and how does this feel? Listen. You may still feel. Fear, the whisper of intuition, does not cancel out the shout of fear, but look for something else underneath it. Do you feel a subtle loosening in your shoulders? Does your breath deepen, even slightly? Do you feel a quiet sense of rightness, a hum of warmth in your chest, a feeling of your energy moving forward? That expansive feeling, however subtle, is the signature of your inner compass pointing north. The practice is not to wait until fear disappears. It is to learn to trust the quiet feeling of expansion, even while the feeling of contraction is still present. You learn to let the whisper be your guide. Imagine that deep within your core is a perfectly calibrated, frictionless compass. The needle is your intuition, and it is designed to point always towards your personal true north, direction of your most authentic path. Fear is like a large, powerful magnet made of all your past pains. When you hold this magnet close to the compass, its disruptive field pulls the needle wildly off course. The needle spins, points south, points east, becomes utterly unreliable. You have spent most of your life trying to navigate your way through the world using this wildly spinning, fear-distorted compass, wondering why you feel so chronically lost. The entire spiritual practice of breathing, of creating silence, of feeling into your body, of healing your wounds, the practice of consciously and slowly moving the magnet of fear away from the compass. As you create distance, the interference lessens. The frantic spinning subsides. The needle settles. It may still quiver with the tremors of life, but it finds its bearing. It points, quietly and unerringly, toward your north. Your work is not to force the needle, but simply to remove the interference. In the growing stillness, you learn to trust its quiet, steady direction above the shouting of all other voices. Once you learn to distinguish the quiet, expansive whisper of your inner compass from the loud, constricting shout of fear, you arrive at a pivotal moment of reckoning. It is a threshold of immense power and profound responsibility. A compass can show you true north, but it cannot walk the path for you. It cannot clear the thorns and brambles that have overgrown the trail. To follow the guidance of your inner compass, you must take on a new and sacred role. You must graduate from being a passive inhabitant of your own mind to becoming its active, dedicated, and loving custodian. You must be willing to accept the full, liberating, and terrifying responsibility of being the gardener of your inner world. For most of us, this concept is deeply challenging because our default mode of operation is to outsource the cause of our inner state. We live in the world as if we were thermometers, simply registering the temperature of our environment. If people are kind to us, we feel happy. If someone is rude, we feel angry. If our project succeeds, we feel worthy. If it fails, we feel like a failure. We cede the power over our internal weather to the unpredictable and uncontrollable events of the external world. This naturally leads to a culture of blame. Blame is a potent psychological defense mechanism. When we can point to an external factor, another person, our boss, the political climate, our childhood as the sole cause of our unhappiness, we are granted a temporary and intoxicating sense of relief. We become the innocent victim, the righteous martyr. This simplifies a complex reality and, most importantly, protects our ego from the difficult task of examining its own role, its own reactions, its own contributions to the dynamic. This victimhood, while seeming to offer a moral high ground, is in fact a state of profound and absolute powerlessness. To say, "You made me angry," is to declare that another human being possesses a remote control for your emotional state. To believe my life is ruined because of my past is to sentence yourself to a lifetime in a prison for a crime you did not even commit. While it may feel temporarily satisfying to blame, it is a long-term strategy for misery because it depends on the one thing you can never achieve: to control over the outside world. You will never be able to control other people's behavior. You will never be able to control the economy. You will never be able to rewrite your past. As long as your inner peace is contingent upon these external factors, you will remain a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the chaotic waves of life. The internal conflict that arises from this is immense. It is the conflict between the seductive ease of blame and the daunting weight of sovereignty. To blame is easy. It is a hot, satisfying rush of indignation. It feels good to be the one who was wronged. The alternative to take responsibility is terrifying. It means we have to abandon our favorite stories of victimhood. It means we have to look at our own part in the dance. To shift from saying, "He made me angry," to "He acted in a way that I found unacceptable, and I chose to respond with anger," is to reclaim your power. But it also means you can no longer indulge in the simple comfort of being the blameless one. It requires admitting that your reactions are yours, your feelings are yours, and ultimately, your inner state is your domain. The ego fights this tooth and nail, for it would often rather be right and miserable than potentially unskillful and free. The breakthrough, the insight that allows you to step onto this path of power, lies in a subtle but life-altering distinction. You are not responsible for everything that happens to you. You are not to blame for the storm that flattens your crops, for the drought that cracks the earth, or for the seeds of invasive weeds that are blown into your field on the wind of other people's actions. You are not responsible for the conditions of the world, but you are, and always will be, 100% responsible to how you respond to these things. You are responsible for what you do after the storm. Do you sit in the mud, curse the sky, and let the field become overgrown with bitterness and resentment? Or do you get on your knees, patiently, and begin the work of clearing the debris and replanting, seed by seed? The external event is the weather. Your response is the gardening. You are not the weather. You are the gardener. Your inner world is this garden. Your thoughts are seeds. Your attention is the water. Your core beliefs are the soil. You cannot always control which seeds land in your garden. A critical comment from a coworker, a piece of bad news, a memory of a past failure, these seeds are blown in on the wind. But you, and only you, hold the watering can. You, and only you, possess the gardener's trowel. You have the ultimate authority to decide which seeds you will nourish with your attention and which ones you will gently but firmly pull from the ground before they take root. To accept this role is to move from being a victim of your mind to being its steward. How do you practice this sacred horticulture? You begin with a simple, conscious commitment, a one-day mental diet. For one full day, from the moment you wake until the moment you sleep, you commit to being a vigilant gardener. Your sole task is to notice every time a weed thought appears in the soil of your mind. A weed is any thought that is rooted in blame, complaint, gossip, or victimhood. The practice has 3 simple steps. First, you must notice the weed. The moment you catch yourself thinking or about to say something like, "I can't believe he did that to me," or "My life would be so much better if only she would change," or "This situation is completely unfair," you must pause. This pause is the first act of the conscious gardener. Second, you label the weed, but you do not fight it. Getting angry at yourself for having negative thoughts is like pouring fertilizer on the weeds. Instead, you simply and gently label it in your mind, blaming, complaining. Victim story. This act of non-judgmental labeling creates a space of awareness. It separates you, the gardener, from the thought, the weed. You see that it is an event in your consciousness, not the entirety of your consciousness. Third, and this is the most crucial step, you refuse to water it. You refuse to give the weed the life-giving water of your focused attention. You do not follow the thought down its familiar, toxic rabbit hole. You do not elaborate on the story of how you have been wronged. You do not call a friend to gossip and complain, which is like inviting them over to help you water the weeds. You simply see the weed, label it, and let it be, withdrawing your attention from it. Then, you immediately and gently turn your attention to the soil itself. You turn your focus to something neutral, present, and real. You bring your full attention to the physical sensation of your breath moving in and out of your body. You feel the soles of your feet on the ground. You look closely at a simple object in your room. This is the act of turning away from the seductive drama of the weed and tending to the quiet, fertile reality of the present moment. For most of your life, perhaps, your inner garden has been unattended. The weeds of negativity, planted by your past and watered by your unconscious reactions, have grown wild. They have choked the light, consumed the nutrients, and created a landscape that feels chaotic and hostile. You have been living in this overgrown plot, believing this was simply the nature of your mind, cursing the poor quality of the soil. The moment you take responsibility is the moment the gardener shows up for work for the first time. You arrive with the tools of awareness and compassionate intention. You do not try to clear the entire, vast garden in one frantic day. That would be overwhelming and impossible. You simply start in one small corner. You simply decide, today, I will not water this patch of resentment over here. Today, I will gently pull this one weed of self-pity. At first, the changes are subtle, but as you continue this patient, daily practice of mental horticulture, something miraculous begins to happen. As the weeds are cleared, as they wither from a lack of attention, the soil begins to receive more sunlight and more air, and the flowers of peace, the strong trees of resilience, and the sweet fruits of joy which have been there as dormant seeds, all along finally have the space and nourishment they need to grow. Your mind does not become an empty void. It becomes a beautifully cultivated garden. It becomes a sanctuary, a place of nourishment and beauty, not because the external weather has miraculously become perfect, but because the gardener has finally, after a long absence, come home. As you begin to diligently tend your inner garden, as you take up the profound responsibility for the thoughts you water and the weeds you pull, you are inevitably led to a much larger and more unsettling inquiry. You lift your gaze from the soil of your moment-to-moment thoughts and you look out at the overall landscape of your life, the career you have built, the relationships you maintain, the home you live in, the very way you spend your precious days. Standing in the center of this life, you must summon the courage to ask a startling question. Who was the original architect of this place? Is the life you are living a true and vibrant expression of your own soul? Or is it a masterful, meticulous execution of someone else's blueprint? Imagine your life as a great and singular work of art, a masterpiece painted over decades. When it is finally complete, when the last brushstroke is made and the oils have dried, whose name will be signed in the bottom corner? Will it be your own signature, written in the unique and inimitable calligraphy of your own conscious choices? Or will it be a beautiful but heartbreaking forgery, expertly rendered yet signed by the hand of societal expectation, familial duty, or deep-seated fear? The uncomfortable truth is that most lives are not consciously designed. They are drifted into. We follow the current of convention. We take the next logical step. We graduate from school and take a job in a field that seems sensible and secure, often without a single, deep inquiry into whether the work itself resonates with our spirit. We enter into relationships and marriages because it is the expected timeline, because we fear being alone, because it is what one does at a certain age. We buy a house in a certain neighborhood because it signals a certain level of success. These are not necessarily bad choices, but they are often unconscious choices, decisions made by momentum rather than by soul-deep intention. We are ships drifting on a current we never questioned, and we mistake the movement of the water for our own navigation. This unconscious drifting is the primary source of the pervasive, low-grade malaise that haunts so many people. It is the root of the so-called midlife crisis, which is not a crisis of age, but a crisis of authenticity. On the surface, everything appears to be perfect. You have checked all the boxes. You have the successful career, the stable family, the respectable home. But in the quiet moments, in the dead of night, there is a hollow feeling. There is a persistent, aching sense that you are an actor playing a role in your own life, a role for which you have been widely applauded, but which fits you like an uncomfortable, ill-fitting costume. This feeling is the pain of inauthenticity. It is your soul crying out in protest against the profound exhaustion of living a life that does not truly belong to it. It is the slow, spiritual death that comes from honoring a forged signature as your own. Authenticity is not about living a wild or eccentric life, although it can be. It is simply about congruence. It is the alignment of your inner world, your values, your intuition, your true north with your outer world, your actions, your choices, your words. An authentic life is one where the inside matches the outside. It is a life signed by its true author. Herein lies one of the most powerful internal conflicts on the human journey. A deep, primal part of us craves this congruence. We yearn to live a life that feels like our own, but we are confronted by the immense, terrifying momentum of the life we have already built around the forgery. We are faced with what economists call the sunk cost fallacy, applied to the very fabric of our existence. I've already invested 15 years in this law career, we tell ourselves. I can't just walk away. We have children and a mortgage. I can't possibly admit that this marriage feels hollow. My parents sacrificed so much for me to get this degree. I cannot disappoint them now. We feel trapped by the years we have invested, by the expectations we have fulfilled, and by the love and approval of others, which we have tragically mistaken for our own inner peace. We feel it would be easier to endure the familiar ache of the inauthentic life than to face the chaos that would ensue if we admitted the truth. The fear of dismantling a life that looks successful to the outside world is immense. The fear of disappointing those who love us is excruciating. And so we soldier on, polishing the forgery, reinforcing the facade, and feeling our own life force slowly drain away with each passing day. The core message, the truth that can set you free, is that authenticity is not a destination you must arrive at in one great cataclysmic leap. It is a moment-to-moment practice. It is a quiet, continuous process of making choices both infinitesimally small and life-altering that are in greater alignment with the whisper of your inner compass. You do not sign your life only at the very end. You sign it every single day. The way you choose to speak to your partner this evening, the project you decide to work on for the next hour, the small but honest no you offer to an obligation that drains you, the quiet yes you give to a flicker of genuine curiosity, each of these is a stroke of ink. The final, great signature on the masterpiece is nothing more than the sum total of these countless, daily, authentic signatures. Your task is not to burn the old canvas and create a perfect new one overnight. Your task is simply to ensure that the signature on today is your own. How do you begin this courageous process of verification? You conduct a gentle, non-judgmental life audit. The purpose of this audit is not to create a frantic to-do list for immediate radical change. Its sole purpose is to see. It is to turn on the lights in the gallery of your life and look with clear and compassionate eyes at what is hanging on the walls. Take a piece of paper or a quiet hour for contemplation. Mentally, divide your life's canvas into its major sections: your career or primary work, your key relationships, your physical home and environment, the way you spend your free time, your relationship with your physical health and body. For each of these areas, ask yourself a series of honest questions. There is no need to justify or even record the answers unless you wish to. Simply allow the truth to surface without judgment. Ask, did I consciously and deliberately choose this, or did I simply drift into it? Ask, when I am engaged in this area of my life, do I feel my energy expand, or do I feel it contract and drain away? Ask, is this a true and vibrant expression of who I am today, or is it a relic of who I thought I was supposed to be 10 or 20 years ago? Ask, whose approval or validation was I seeking when I originally made this choice? And finally, if fear and other people's opinions were not a factor, would I choose this again today? The most crucial instruction for this audit is to approach it with immense self-compassion. Do not judge what you find. Do not berate yourself for the forgeries you discover. The sole purpose is to see honestly the simple act of acknowledging the truth to yourself. This career is not truly mine, or realizing with gratitude, this friendship is deeply authentic, is a profound first step. Seeing the forgery is the beginning of reclaiming your artistry. Imagine that for years, a master forger has been living and working in the studio of your life. He is an expert, able to perfectly mimic the signature of success, responsibility, and duty. The canvases in your life are full. The work is technically proficient, and the world has applauded it. But you, the true artist, have been standing outside, locked out of your own studio, listening to the sounds of another creating a life in your name. All the inner work you have been doing is the process of finding the key to that studio door. The life audit is the act of turning that key, opening the door, and stepping inside for the first time in a long time. You turn on the lights, and you see. You see the beautiful, technically perfect, and utterly lifeless forgeries. You do not need to slash the old canvases. They are part of your story. They taught you about color and form and the tools of life. You simply walk up to the forger's part of you that was so desperate for safety and approval, and you thank him for his service. You acknowledge that he was only trying to protect you. And then you gently, lovingly take the paintbrush from his hand. You turn to a fresh canvas, the canvas of today. And with a hand that may be trembling but is now finally your own, you make the first true, authentic stroke. The signature on this day's work will be yours, and that is the only masterpiece that has ever truly mattered. Having taken the paintbrush of your life into your own hand, having committed to signing your days with the ink of an authentic signature, you will begin to notice a profound shift in the world around you. It is not that the world itself has fundamentally changed, but your capacity to see it has been refined. You begin to perceive that life is not a random collection of separate events and disconnected people. Instead, you see that it is a vast and intricate hall of mirrors, a sacred feedback loop that is constantly, tirelessly, and perfectly reflecting your own inner state back to you. Every person who delights you, Every individual who infuriates you, every challenge that makes you feel small, and every opportunity that makes you feel expansive is a mirror. The great spiritual journey is not about searching for better, more flattering mirrors. It is about gathering the immense courage required to look steadily at your own reflection. This is the deep and transformative wisdom of the mirror of still water. The psychological mechanism at play here is one of the most powerful forces in the human psyche, projection. We all possess what the great psychologist Carl Jung called a shadow self. The shadow is the disowned part of our own consciousness. It is a vast container holding all the traits, impulses, and emotions that we, at a very early age, deemed unacceptable. It holds our anger, our envy, our greed, our vulnerability, our wildness, any part of us that was met with disapproval or punishment. To survive socially, we repress these traits, pushing them down into the dark basement of the unconscious. We are almost entirely blind to these qualities in ourselves, but we see them with blinding, painful clarity in other people. The arrogance that infuriates you in a colleague may be the reflection of your own disowned ambition or a secret sense of superiority. The perceived laziness in a family member that drives you to distraction might be a mirror for your own repressed and desperate need for rest and stillness. The world becomes a screen onto which we project the hidden films of our own inner life. It is always easier and far more socially acceptable to attack a perceived flaw in someone else than it is to turn inward and own that same quality in ourselves. This dynamic also works for our positive qualities. We also have a golden shadow, the parts of our potential that we have disowned out of fear or a feeling of unworthiness. It holds our brilliance, our courage, our artistic gifts, our leadership, our capacity for profound love. When we find ourselves intensely admiring or idolizing another person for their freedom, their creativity, or their courage, we are often seeing our own unlived potential reflected back at us. We are projecting our own golden shadow onto them. We admire in them what we have not yet had the courage to cultivate and express in ourselves. Therefore, every strong emotional reaction you have to another person, whether it is intensely negative or intensely positive, is a sacred piece of data. It is not really about them. It is a precise GPS coordinate pointing directly to a part of your own psyche that is either unhealed, unacknowledged, or unexpressed. This understanding brings you face to face with a powerful internal conflict. The ego loves the comfort of judgment. To look at another person's behavior and declare it to be wrong, selfish, or ignorant provides a hot, satisfying rush of moral superiority. It solidifies our own fragile sense of being one of the good ones. The entire architecture of the ego is built on this foundation of comparison and judgment. The alternative to use the interaction as a mirror is deeply uncomfortable and humbling. It requires you to interrupt the satisfying momentum of blame and to ask an excruciatingly difficult question: what is this person showing me about myself? This practice is a direct threat to the ego's supremacy. It means giving up the gratifying role of the righteous judge and taking on the challenging work of the humble self-examiner. For most of us, we would rather spend years of our lives trying to fix, change, or punish the reflection in the mirror than spend one honest moment looking at our own face. The core message, the insight that shatters this paradigm, is this: you have been living your life as if the world is a series of windows through which you look out at a separate, objective reality full of flawed people. The great shift in consciousness is the realization that the world is primarily a mirror, reflecting your own inner condition. The people who trigger you are not your tormentors. They are your most dedicated, unpaid spiritual teachers. They are messengers, carrying a vital piece of information for your own liberation. Their purpose in your life from a spiritual perspective is not to make you miserable, but to hold up a mirror to the parts of you that are already miserable, the parts of you that are still in need of your own love and attention. And the clarity of this reflection depends entirely on the state of your own mind. A reflection seen in turbulent, muddy water is distorted, fragmented, and unreliable. A reflection seen in a pool of still, clear water is true and precise. This is why all the preceding work of creating silence, of anchoring in the breath is so essential. The quieter your mind, the stiller the water of your consciousness becomes, and the more clearly you can see the truth of what the world is reflecting back to you. How do you put this profound understanding into practice? You begin the practice of using every emotional trigger as an opportunity for self-inquiry. The next time you feel a strong emotional charge toward another person, intense anger, irritation, envy, judgment, or even obsessive admiration, recognize it as a signal. A mirror is being held up. Instead of immediately reacting, lashing out, or complaining to someone else, find a moment of stillness if you can. Pause. Take a breath. This pause is your moment of power. Then, take out a journal, or simply do this as a quiet, internal process. On one side of a mental page, name the specific quality in the other person that is activating you. Be precise. Is it their perceived arrogance, their victimhood, their irresponsibility, their confidence, their success? On the other side of the page, you will hold up the mirror. With as much self-compassion and radical honesty as you can muster, you ask the brave question. If the trait you identified as negative, like arrogance, you ask, where in my life do I exhibit a version of this quality? Perhaps not in the same way, but where am I also arrogant? Or where do I fear being seen as arrogant? Or you might ask, what is my unhealed wound related to arrogance? If the trait you identified is positive, like a radiant confidence that sparks envy in you, you ask, what part of me is longing to express this quality? What is stopping me from owning my own confidence? This practice is not about condoning harmful behavior in others, nor is it about blaming yourself. It is about using every interaction as a tool for your own liberation. You stop trying to smash or polish the mirror, and you start working with the one being reflected. This is how you reclaim the vast amounts of energy you have been projecting out into the world. Imagine that your life is a journey through a vast and varied hall of mirrors. Some are like carnival mirrors, grotesquely distorting your reflection, making you seem far too large or far too small. These are the projections of deeply wounded people. Some mirrors are cracked and covered in the dust of ages, showing you a fragmented, unclear image of yourself. These are the confusing and challenging situations of life. For a long time, your quest was to find one perfect, clean, well-lit mirror that would show you a reflection that you could finally love. You ran from the distorted mirrors and desperately tried to clean the dirty ones. You spent all of your energy focused on the mirrors. The path of wisdom is to realize that the state of the mirrors is ultimately irrelevant. The work is to become so familiar, so intimate, and so loving with your own true face that the reflections no longer hold any power over you. The goal is to cultivate such a deep and unshakable inner stillness that you yourself become like a pool of perfectly still water. In this state of inner calm, you can see all the other reflections for what they are: distortions, fragments, echoes of your own inner state. And at your core, in the stillness of your own being, you hold a true, clear, and unwavering image of yourself, independent of any reflection. You are no longer dependent on the world to tell you who you are, because you have become the source of your own truest reflection. After looking into the clear mirror of the world, after beginning to accept the profound responsibility of being the gardener of your mind, you arrive at the great and practical question of action. It is not enough to see the truth in a moment of clarity. You must begin to build a life that can hold that truth. It is not enough to know your true north. You must develop the strength and consistency to walk in that direction day after day. This is where we encounter one of the most misunderstood, maligned, and essential concepts on the path of self-realization: discipline. For most of us, the word itself lands with a thud. It conjures images of restriction, of punishment, of a grim-faced drill sergeant shouting in our minds. We have been taught to see discipline as a cage we build to contain our own worst impulses. But this is a painful and profoundly unhelpful misunderstanding. True discipline is not a prison. It is the loving, intentional architecture of your own freedom. It is the act of building a structure strong enough to house your highest and most authentic aspirations. To understand this, we must first dismantle the old, painful paradigm of discipline. The conventional view frames discipline as a battle of willpower, a war waged against our own nature. I have to force myself to go to the gym. I must resist the desire to relax. I have to fight the urge to procrastinate. In this model, the self is split in two: a good self that desires growth and a bad self that desires comfort and pleasure. The two are locked in a perpetual civil war. This approach is doomed to fail because it relies on willpower, and willpower is a finite, exhaustible resource. You can force yourself to comply for a while, but eventually, the part of you that feels deprived, punished, and controlled will rebel. This is the psychological root of the binge and purge cycle that governs so many of our attempts at change. A week of rigid dieting, followed by a weekend of frantic indulgence. A month of intense work, followed by a week of complete burnout. This is not discipline. It is self-flagellation. The new paradigm, the one that leads to sustainable change, reframes discipline entirely. It is not an act of self-punishment, but an act of profound self-love. It is a gesture of devotion to your future self. Every time you choose the action that aligns with your deeper values over the action that offers fleeting, momentary comfort, you are sending a gift of strength and peace to the person you will be tomorrow, next week, and next year. It is a declaration of deep self-respect. It is the voice within you saying, I value my future peace of mind more than I value this moment's indulgence and anger. It is the wisdom that says, I value my future health and vitality more than I value the comfort of the couch right now. The most critical shift, however, is from relying on willpower to embracing intelligent design. The most truly disciplined people are not those with superhuman reserves of inner strength. They are simply the most skillful architects of their own lives. They do not depend on in-the-moment motivation. They create systems, routines, and environments where the desired choice becomes the path of least resistance. Herein lies the conflict that plays out within us every day. Our brains are biologically wired to prioritize immediate gratification. The tangible pleasure of eating the sugary snack now is far more compelling to our ancient brain than the abstract benefit of better health in the future. The comfort of staying in a warm bed now is more powerful than the promise of feeling energized after a workout. At the same time, a part of us, our rebellious, freedom-seeking spirit, often resists the very idea of structure. We equate discipline with rigidity, boredom, and a loss of spontaneity. We want to be free. But in our quest for this illusory freedom, we often stumble into a different kind of prison, the prison of chaos, the paralysis of too many choices, and the quiet despair of unfulfilled potential. We are free to do anything, which often results in us doing nothing of meaning. The inner conflict is between the short-sighted impulse for immediate pleasure and the long-sighted wisdom of our deeper self, between the chaos of no structure and the imagined tyranny of a rigid structure. We oscillate between being a harsh drill sergeant to ourselves and a lenient parent who lets the child run wild. The path forward is to become a third option, the wise and loving architect. The core message, the blueprint for this new architecture, is a paradox. True freedom is not found in the absence of structure, but in the creation of the right structure. Discipline is not the cage. It is the key that unlocks you from the cage of your own moods, impulses, and whims. A river without banks is a stagnant swamp. It is the banks that give the river its power, its direction, its ability to flow. Your discipline provides the banks for the river of your life. Therefore, you must stop trying to be a person with more willpower. That is a battle you will lose. Instead, become an intelligent designer of your own environment and routines. A life of elegant discipline is not forced. It is skillfully constructed. And every act of building this structure is an act of self-respect. It is a promise you make and keep to yourself, a declaration that you are worthy of living your best life. How do you begin this work of architecture? You start small. You do not try to redesign the entire city of your life overnight. You choose one small building, one single habit, and you focus on its design, not on your motivation. First, choose one, and only one, area where you wish to cultivate discipline. Perhaps it is meditating for 5 minutes each morning. Perhaps it is writing one page of a book. Perhaps it is not looking at your phone for the first hour of the day. Do not choose 5 things. Choose one. Second, your guiding principle is not willpower, but friction. Your entire task is to make the desired behavior ridiculously easy to start and the undesired behavior noticeably harder to start. You are an architect of ease. Ask yourself the first question: how can I make my desired habit 20 seconds easier to begin? If you want to meditate, don't leave your cushion in the closet. The night before, place it in the middle of your living room floor. If you want to go for a run in the morning, sleep in your running clothes or place your shoes and socks right by your bed so it is the first thing you see. If you want to read more, put the book on your pillow so you have to physically move it to go to sleep. You are removing every possible point of friction between you and the first step. Conversely, ask yourself the second question: how can I make my undesired habit 20 seconds harder to begin? If you want to watch less television, unplug it after you are finished and put the remote control in a drawer in another room. The small amount of friction this creates is often enough to break the spell of mindless channel surfing. If you want to stop scrolling on your phone, delete the tempting apps from your home screen. Force yourself to log in through a web browser each time. That extra friction gives your conscious mind a chance to intervene and ask, is this really what I want to be doing right now? You are not making the bad habit impossible. You are simply making it less convenient. You are gently, intelligently nudging your own behavior in the direction your highest self wants to go. Imagine that your potential, your life force, your soul's deepest purpose is a beautiful and powerful vine. For years, without the support of discipline, this vine has been left to grow along the ground. It has become tangled in the mud of procrastination, choked by the weeds of distraction, and vulnerable to the pests of self-doubt. It has immense, vibrant potential, but because it has no direction, it produces little fruit, its leaves unable to reach the life-giving sun. Discipline is the loving act of building a trellis for this vine. It is a simple, strong structure built from the wood of your small, consistent daily actions and the intelligent design of your environment. You build this trellis not to punish the vine, not to restrict its growth, but to serve it. You create a framework, a support system upon which it can climb. At first, you must gently guide the tender shoots of the vine toward the trellis, but very soon, its own innate intelligence takes over. It begins to wrap its tendrils around the structure, sensing the path upward. It climbs higher and higher, reaching for the sunlight it has always craved. The trellis does not force the vine to grow. It provides the support and direction that allows the vine to fulfill its own glorious, innate potential. In the same way, your discipline does not create your passion or your purpose. It is the strong, loving architecture that allows your soul's purpose to rise from the mud, to reach the light, and finally, to bear its magnificent fruit for the world to see. After you have begun to build the trellis of discipline, after you have started to create a life of conscious intention and elegant design, you will inevitably find yourself with more space. By weeding the garden of your mind and architecting your habits, you create pockets of time and silence that did not exist before. And in these newfound clearings, you will come face to face with one of the most feared and misunderstood specters of the human experience: the feeling of being alone. Our culture has taught us to fear this state, to view it as a symptom of social failure, a sign of being unwanted or unloved. We label it loneliness, and we treat it like a disease, rushing for the cure of any available distraction or connection, no matter how superficial. But within this feared territory lies one of the greatest of all spiritual treasures. The work that now presents itself is to learn the sacred alchemical art of transmuting the raw, heavy lead of loneliness into the radiant, shimmering gold of solitude. To begin this alchemy, you must first understand the profound difference between these two states. Loneliness is a state of lack. It is a painful awareness of an absence. It arises from the core belief that your wholeness, your happiness, and your sense of being okay are dependent on something outside of you: a partner, a group of friends, a community. Loneliness is the feeling of being an incomplete half, desperately searching for another half to make you whole. It is outwardly focused, a hunger for external validation, a frantic scanning of the horizon for someone to come and rescue you from your own company. It is often accompanied by a restless anxiety, a sense of deficiency, and the gnawing feeling that you are missing out on a life that is happening elsewhere. Solitude, on the other hand, is a state of fullness. It is not about the pain of being alone, but about the rich and generative joy of being with yourself. It is inwardly focused. It is the experience of discovering that your own company is a universe of endless fascination. Solitude is a chosen state, a luxurious retreat into the sanctuary of your own being. It is the prerequisite for deep thought, for true creativity, for listening to the quiet whispers of your own intuition. Where loneliness feels like poverty, solitude feels like wealth. Loneliness is a punishment. Solitude is a reward. We confuse these two states because we are social creatures, wired with a primal fear of exile. For our ancient ancestors, being cast out from the tribe was a literal death sentence. This deep, archaic fear is still alive in our nervous systems. Modern society amplifies it exponentially with its relentless emphasis on hyperconnectivity, its performance of friendship on social media, and its cultural narrative that romantic partnership is the ultimate indicator of a successful life. We have been so thoroughly conditioned to believe that our value lies in being connected to others that we have forgotten that the ability to be peacefully and joyfully connected to oneself is an equally vital, if not more fundamental, human capacity. This conditioning creates a powerful and immediate internal conflict. The moment the feeling of loneliness begins to surface, perhaps on a quiet evening or a weekend with no plans, an inner alarm goes off. The immediate, almost unconscious reflex is to reach for a cure. We grab our phones and scroll through the highlight reels of other people's lives, a practice almost perfectly designed to amplify our sense of lack. We turn on the television, filling the silence with noise. We send out a flurry of texts, hoping for an anchor of connection. We will do almost anything to avoid sitting in the discomfort of that inner void. What are we so afraid of meeting in our own company? We are afraid of the thoughts we have been successfully distracting ourselves from. We are afraid of the unresolved grief, the latent anxiety, the deep questions about our life's meaning and purpose. We are afraid that if we are left alone, with no one to validate our existence, we will be forced to confront our own emptiness, our own mortality. The frantic search for company is, for many of us, a frantic flight from the self. The conflict is between the soul's deep need for the nourishment and wisdom that only solitude can provide, and the ego's conditioned, terrified flight from the feeling of loneliness. The core message, the alchemical formula that allows for transformation, is this: loneliness is not a problem to be solved or a state to be avoided at all costs. It is the raw material. It is the lead that the wise alchemist places into the crucible, not with fear, but with respect. You do not run from it. You turn toward it. The fire you use to heat this raw material, the catalyst for its transformation, is your own conscious, loving attention. Loneliness is the feeling of the poverty of self, the deeply ingrained belief that you are not enough on your own. Solitude is the direct experience of the wealth of self, the stunning discovery that your own consciousness, your own inner world, is a landscape of inexhaustible richness. Therefore, the ultimate journey is not about finding the right person to cure your loneliness. It is about becoming the person you would be delighted to be alone with. And paradoxically, only when you have achieved this can you enter into relationships that are truly free. When you no longer need another person to fill your own void, you are liberated to love them for who they truly are, not for the function they serve in your life. Deep intimacy is not the merging of two half people. It is the resonant encounter between two individuals who are already whole. How do you practice this alchemy? You begin by intentionally and lovingly courting your own company. You schedule a date with yourself. Look at your calendar and block out a period of time. It could be 1 hour, one afternoon, or an entire day. Treat this appointment with the same respect you would give to a meeting with a person you hold in the highest esteem. During this sacred time, your phone is off, or better yet, in another room. the television is off. There is no mindless scrolling, no checking of emails, no chores. This is a container for your attention. Within this container, you choose to do something that your authentic self genuinely wants to do, not as a means to an end, but for the pure joy of the activity itself. Go to an art museum with the sole intention of looking at one single painting for 20 minutes. Take a journal to a quiet park bench and have a conversation with yourself on paper. Go for a long walk in nature without headphones, paying attention only to the sounds of the birds and the feeling of the wind. Cook yourself a beautiful, nourishing meal as if you were preparing it for a beloved guest, and then savor every single bite. The specific activity is not the point. The intention behind it is everything. The intention is to consciously and deliberately practice being your own good company. During this state, the feeling of loneliness will almost certainly arise. You may feel awkward, self-conscious, or restless. When this happens, do not abandon the date. Do not flee. This is the crucial moment of the alchemical process. Greet the feeling of loneliness with a gentle curiosity. Acknowledge it. Ah, there you are. I feel you. You are welcome to be here. And then, after acknowledging it, gently guide your attention back to your chosen activity, back to the taste of your food, the texture of the tree bark, the colors in the painting. You are teaching your nervous system through direct experience that you can survive the feeling of loneliness, and you are discovering that on the other side of that initial discomfort lies something peaceful, rich, and deeply fulfilling. For much of your life, you have experienced yourself as an empty vessel. You have walked through the world with a feeling of inner hollowness, consciously or unconsciously, hoping that another person, a job, or a community would come along and pour their water of love, validation, and attention into you to make you feel full. Your sense of well-being has been outsourced, dependent on 1,000 fragile external sources. This is the state of loneliness. It is the quiet agony of being an empty cup waiting forever to be filled. The alchemy of solitude is the profound, life-altering discovery that you are not the vessel, you are the wellspring. Deep within you, beneath the chattering, needy ego, is an infinite source of peace, creativity, wisdom, and love. Solitude is the act of learning to lower your own bucket into your own deep well. It is the practice of nourishing yourself from your own inexhaustible inner resources. When you discover this wellspring, when you learn to draw from it, you are never truly alone again. You can then go out and meet the world, not as a begging bowl, but as a fountain with more than enough to share. In the quiet, sacred sanctuary of solitude, as you learn to comfortably inhabit your own being, you will become aware of the things you have been carrying. In the silence, you can no longer ignore their weight. You begin to feel the distinct, heavy chafe of chains you have been dragging through your life, perhaps for decades. These are the chains of old resentments, of bitter grievances, of stories of betrayal that you have rehearsed in the theater of your mind 1,000 times. They are the dense, energetic tethers that bind you to people and events from your past, keeping a part of your life force forever locked in another time, another place. You have carried them for so long you may have forgotten they are not a part of you, mistaking their immense weight for the natural gravity of life. But now, in the stillness, you can feel their coldness. You can hear their clank with every mental step you take. The next great stage of your liberation is the act of unbinding. It is the courageous work of consciously and deliberately breaking these chains, not for the sake of those who bound you, but for the sake of your own freedom. To understand how to break these chains, you must first understand the nature of their forged links. Resentment is a form of psychic self-poisoning. The word itself comes from the Latin resentireto, re-feel. When you hold a grudge, you are willingly re-experiencing the pain of the original wound over and over again. Your mind, in a misguided attempt to protect you, believes that by keeping the anger and the pain alive, it is keeping you vigilant, ensuring you will not be hurt in the same way again. It creates a rigid, traumatic story in which you are the righteous victim and the other person is the unredeemable villain. This story feels validating, but it is a cage. Holding on to this resentment consumes a colossal amount of your vital energy. It is like running a demanding, obsolete piece of software in the background of your consciousness at all times. It drains your processing power, it slows your system down, and it makes you perpetually sluggish and irritable. Your precious life force, which could be used to create your present and build your future, is instead siphoned off to keep a ghost from the past alive. We cling to these chains because we are under the powerful illusion that they are a weapon. We believe that by remaining angry, by refusing to forgive, we are somehow punishing the person who hurt us. We imagine that our inner turmoil is a force that is actively harming them. But this is a profound delusion. More often than not, the other person is living their life entirely unaware or unaffected by the drama unfolding within you. The only person being consistently tormented by your anger is you. The only person being continuously poisoned by your resentment is you. You are not holding a weapon aimed at them. You are shackled to them, forced to drag the memory of them with you wherever you go. You are chained to your own jailer. This leads to one of the most stubborn of all internal conflicts. A deep part of your soul longs for peace. It craves the lightness and freedom of letting go. But your ego, the fierce guardian of your wounds, cries out for justice. It screams that forgiveness is unfair. They don't deserve it, it shouts. They hurt me, and they never even apologized. To forgive them would be to let them get away with it. The ego equates forgiveness with condoning the harmful act. It believes that to forgive is to say, "What you did was okay." This feels like a profound betrayal of our own pain, a desecration of our own experience. We feel we must hold on to the anger as a monument to the wrongness of what happened, as if our resentment is the only thing upholding justice in the universe. We also fear that if we forgive, we are lowering our defenses, naively opening ourselves up to be hurt again. The anger feels like a necessary shield. The conflict, therefore, is between the soul's deep yearning for the spacious freedom of release and the ego's righteous, fearful, and addictive attachment to its grievances. The core message, the key that unlocks these chains, is a radical reframing of forgiveness. You must understand this with every cell of your being. Forgiveness has almost nothing to do with the other person. It is not a gift of mercy you graciously bestow upon your offender. It is a fierce and pragmatic act of self-liberation. It is you, the prisoner, deciding to saw through your own shackles, regardless of whether the jailer apologizes, whether they understand, or whether they even remember your name. Forgiveness does not mean you are erasing the past or pretending the harm did not occur. It means you are consciously choosing to stop allowing the past to poison your present. It is a declaration of emotional sovereignty that says, "What you did was not okay. It was harmful, and it caused me great pain. I will not deny that reality, but I will no longer sacrifice my peace today on the altar of a pain from yesterday. I will no longer allow the memory of you to occupy precious real estate in the kingdom of my mind." Forgiveness does not require reconciliation. You can forgive someone and, with wisdom, choose to never see them again. Forgiveness does not require you to forget. It means that you can remember the event without re-experiencing the full, debilitating charge of the original wound. It is the act of cutting the energetic cord that binds you to the person or event. As long as you are consumed by resentment, you are in a toxic, energetic contract with your past. Forgiveness is the act of taking a pair of golden scissors and severing that cord, reclaiming all the energy that has been leaking away. How do you perform this sacred act of unbinding? You can begin with a powerful ritual of release, the unsent letter. Find a time and a place where you will not be disturbed. Treat this as a sacred ceremony, for that is what it is. Take a pen and paper. At the top of the page, write the name of the person you intend to forgive. Then, write to them without any filter or censorship. Do not worry about grammar or politeness. This letter is for your eyes only. Pour out every last ounce of your rage, your pain, your sadness, your confusion, and your disappointment. Detail exactly what they did and precisely how it made you feel. Use the most extreme language you need to use. If you need to curse and scream on the page, do so. Do not hold back. The purpose of this is to empty the venom from your system onto the paper. Fill as many pages as you need, Write until you feel completely and utterly empty, until there is nothing left to say. When you have exhausted your pain, take a new paragraph. Now, you will write a declaration of release. It is a statement made for your own benefit. It might be something like this: "And now, having expressed all of this, for the sake of my own peace, for the freedom of my own soul, I take my energy back. I release you from the role of villain in my life story. I release you from the debt I thought you owed me. I cut the cord that has bound me to you. I set myself free." The final step is the most crucial. The letter, having served as a container for the poison, must now be destroyed. It is not to be saved or reread. You must release it physically as a symbol of your inner release. The most powerful way to do this is to safely burn it. As you watch the paper turn to ash and the smoke rise into the sky, visualize all of that heavy, toxic energy dissolving, leaving you, if burning is not possible, tear it into 1,000 tiny pieces. Submerge it in water until the ink runs and the paper dissolves. Bury it in the earth. This physical act is a potent signal to your subconscious mind. It is a rite of passage, declaring that the old story is over. Imagine that holding on to resentment is like grasping a burning hot coal that you have plucked from a fire. Your intention is to hold on to it, waiting for the perfect moment to throw it at the person who hurt you. You walk through your life, your hand clenched around this searing coal, your mind fixated on your eventual revenge. But who, in this scenario, is actually being burned? The other person is likely going about their life, completely untouched by your ordeal. You are the one whose hand is being blistered and scarred. You are the one whose every moment is colored by the agony of holding the burning thing. Your focus is so consumed by the coal that you cannot feel the warmth of the sun. You cannot hold the hand of a loved one. You cannot pick up the tools you need to build a beautiful life. Forgiveness is not about finally getting to throw the coal. It is the simple, profound, and deeply intelligent act of opening your hand and letting it drop. The moment you let it go, the burning stops. Your hand is still tender, yes. The scars are still there. But it is free. It is free to heal. It is free to work, to create, to love. You open your hand not for their sake, but for the sake of your own precious, beautiful, and unrepeatable life. After the difficult, liberating work of unbinding the chains of resentment, after letting the hot coal of old grievances fall from your hand, you stand in a new kind of space. It is a space of lightness and possibility. But this new freedom brings with it a stark and powerful realization. With the external villains of your life story released from their roles, there is no one left to blame. With the chains to your past severed, you are confronted with the full, unadulterated power of your own present moment. You are faced with the awesome, terrifying, and glorious burden of your own sovereignty. You must now come to terms with the ultimate creative force in your universe, the sovereignty of your choice. For much of our lives, we operate under a powerful and pervasive illusion. The illusion that we have no choice. We feel ourselves to be at the mercy of circumstance. We tell ourselves stories in which we are the passive recipients of life's fortunes and misfortunes. I had to take this job. My anger was justified because of what she said. I can't help feeling this way. This is a psychological state known as learned helplessness. When we repeatedly face situations where our actions seem to have no effect, we can generalize that feeling of powerlessness to all areas of our lives, even to situations where we do, in fact, have immense power. We abdicate our own authority because, in a strange way, it is easier. To make a conscious, deliberate choice requires awareness, it requires energy, and it requires courage. And most terrifying of all, it means we are responsible for the outcome. It is far more comfortable for the ego to drift, to react habitually, and then to blame the situation if things go wrong. The phrase, "I had no choice," is one of the most potent defense mechanisms we possess. It is the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. It keeps us safe from the fear of failure and from the immense weight of being the acknowledged creator of our own life. The most subtle and powerful form of this abdication is believing that inaction is not a choice. But inaction is perhaps the most significant choice of all. To choose to stay in a job that is draining your soul is an active choice to prioritize security over vitality. To choose to remain silent when your values are being compromised is an active choice to prioritize comfort over integrity. To choose to continue a habit that you know is harming your body is an active choice to prioritize momentary pleasure over long-term well-being. There is no neutral ground. You are the author of your life in every moment, even when the sentences you write are a story of your own passivity. This brings you to the heart of a profound internal conflict. It is the conflict between the comfort of the passenger seat and the terror of the driver's seat. It is deeply comforting to believe you are merely a passenger in the car of your life. You can complain about the driver, be it your boss, your partner, your parents, or an abstract concept like fate. You can critique the terrible traffic and the bumpy road. You have no real responsibility for where the car is going. You are just along for the ride. It is a position of perceived innocence and powerlessness. But to embrace your sovereignty is to climb into the driver's seat and to admit with a trembling heart that you have been there all along with your hands on the wheel. This is terrifying. It means every wrong turn was your choice. It means if you are lost in the woods, it is your responsibility to read the map, to listen to your inner compass, and to find the way out. It means that no one is coming to save you because you are the one who has been driving the car into the ditch. We want the freedom of being the driver, but the blamelessness of being the passenger, and life does not allow for this contradiction. The core message, the truth that dissolves this conflict, has been expressed most beautifully by the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. He observed that even in the most horrific and powerless of circumstances, there was one freedom the Nazis could not take away from the prisoners, the freedom to choose their own attitude, their own response. This insight is the foundation of all human dignity and power. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This space may be only a fraction of a second long, but within it lies the entire universe of your sovereignty. You are the absolute and undisputed ruler of the kingdom of your inner world. Your thoughts, your words, your reactions, and your choices are your royal decrees. The external world can send petitioners to your court. It can make demands. It can even lay siege to your castle walls. But it cannot enter your throne room and issue a decree in your name. Only you can do that. Every single choice you make, from the monumental decision of who to marry, to the mundane choice of what to eat for lunch, to the subtle choice of which thought to believe, is an exercise of this untouchable sovereignty. Even the choice to believe that you have no choice is itself a sovereign act of abdication. It is not the circumstances of your life that ultimately shape you, but the sum total of the choices you have made in response to those circumstances. This is the bedrock of your power. It is the creative instrument with which you build your life, moment by moment. How do you begin to wield this power consciously? You begin by practicing the art of the intentional pause. You must learn to widen that sacred space between stimulus and response. Your first task is to become a student of your own automatic reactions. Notice the specific situations, people, or comments that trigger an immediate, habitual response in you. Perhaps it is the way your partner leaves their clothes on the floor and you immediately feel a surge of rage. Perhaps it is the feeling of stress at work and you immediately reach for your phone to numb yourself with distraction. Notice these triggers without judgment. The next time you feel a familiar trigger, your entire practice is to introduce a pause before you react. This pause can be as short as one single conscious breath. Before the angry, defensive words leave your mouth, inhale deeply and exhale slowly. Before your thumb unconsciously opens the social media app, inhale and exhale. In the space created by that one breath, simply acknowledge the truth to yourself: I have a choice here. That's it. You don't even have to make the better choice. You can still choose to get angry. You can still choose to scroll. The revolutionary act is not in making the perfect choice. It is in the simple, profound, earth-shattering recognition that you have a choice. This recognition is the seed from which all true change grows. Practice this on small things first. Practice choosing to take a sip of water before your morning coffee. Practice choosing to listen for 5 seconds longer before you formulate your response in a conversation. Build the muscle of conscious choice in these low-stakes environments, and you will find that it is strong enough to serve you when the stakes are high. Imagine your life as a ship, and you are its captain. Your body is the vessel, your mind is the crew. The vast, unpredictable ocean is the world of circumstances. For a long time, you may have lived like a victim of this ocean. When the harsh winds of adversity blew, you let your sails flap wildly in the storm, and you cursed the cruelty of the wind. When the great waves of challenge crashed against your hull, you complained about the unfairness of the sea, and so your ship drifted, battered, and aimless, at the mercy of every tide and every squall. To embrace your sovereignty is to walk to the helm of your ship, to place your hands firmly on the wheel, and to declare, once and for all, I am the captain here. A wise captain does not waste an ounce of energy trying to command the wind or calm the ocean. That is an act of folly. The captain knows this is impossible. Instead, the wise captain focuses exclusively on the one thing they can control, the set of the sails. The captain knows that by skillfully and consistently adjusting the sails, their attitude, their perspective, their choices, they can use the very same wind that the victim curses to power their ship with intention and purpose toward their chosen destination. The wind does not determine the ship's destiny. The skill of the captain does. You cannot control the events of your life, but you are, and have always been, the captain. The power to choose your response is the rudder in your hand, the trim of the sail. Take the helm. Having taken the helm of your ship, having accepted the profound and sometimes terrifying sovereignty of your own choice, you must now ask a vital question. What fuel powers this vessel on its long journey? For most of our lives, we have been running on a cheap, highly combustible, and ultimately unreliable fuel source. We have been powered by the praise of others, the approval of society, and the fleeting recognition found in external achievements. But a ship designed to sail the vast and unpredictable oceans of a truly authentic life cannot run on such fuel. It will inevitably find itself becalmed, stranded when the winds of public opinion change. To navigate your true path, you must learn to stop seeking sparks from the outside world and begin the sacred work of cultivating your own silent fire. To do this, you must first understand the two fundamentally different types of fuel available to you. The first is called extrinsic motivation. It is the energy that comes from outside the self. It is the desire for the higher salary, the prestigious job title, the corner office. It is the hunger for more followers, more likes, more shares. It is the need for the applause of the crowd, the respect of your peers, and the pride in your parents' eyes. Our entire educational, corporate, and social systems are built upon this fuel. It is undeniably powerful in the short term. It can motivate us to study for the exam, to work late on the project, to achieve remarkable things. But extrinsic motivation is like building a fire with dry kindling and newspaper. It ignites quickly and burns with a big, impressive, dramatic flame, but it consumes its fuel at a ferocious rate and quickly dies down, leaving you cold and in need of more. It makes you dependent on a fragile, unpredictable external supply chain. You become a hungry ghost, forever seeking your next meal of validation. The second type of fuel is intrinsic motivation. This is the energy that arises from within. It is the silent fire. It is not driven by the reward at the end of the journey, but by the deep satisfaction of the journey itself. It is the genuine curiosity that compels a scientist to spend years exploring a single question. It is the inherent joy that a musician feels when lost in the creation of a melody. It is the quiet sense of purpose that a gardener feels when tending to the soil. Intrinsic motivation is fueled by your authentic interests, your deepest values, and the simple love of the process. This fire is not loud or spectacular. It does not seek an audience, but it is a slow, steady, and deeply efficient burn. It is a fire that you can rely on because its source is not in the fickle world of other people's opinions, but in the stable core of your own being. The great work of maturing as a sovereign human being is the work of transitioning from being powered by the first kind of fire to being warmed by the second. The internal conflict here is powerful because we are, by nature and conditioning, creatures who are deeply addicted to applause. From our earliest moments, our actions were mirrored back to us with approval or disapproval. A baby's first steps are met with jubilant celebration. A good grade on a report card is met with praise. This creates a deep and persistent neural pathway in our brains. My actions are valuable only when they are witnessed, validated, and celebrated by others. This addiction to external validation is the primary obstacle to living a truly authentic life. The conflict arises when your inner compass, your intuition, points you toward a path that the world does not understand, does not value, and will not applaud. It is the call to write the book that may never be published, to start the small business that may not become a giant corporation, to dedicate your life to a quiet art or a subtle craft that brings no fame or fortune. To walk these paths requires a willingness to be invisible, and the ego is terrified of invisibility. It screams, "What is the point of doing something if no one will see it? What is the point of creating beauty if there is no one to admire it? If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound?" This fear is the desperate cry of the part of you that has learned to equate its existence with its reflection in the eyes of others. The conflict is between the immediate, tangible, and addictive rush of external validation and the quiet, intangible, and deeply nourishing satisfaction of authentic expression. It is the choice between performing for a crowd under the bright, hot lights and creating in the sacred, silent solitude of your own studio. The core message, the truth that will fuel your true journey, is this: you must stop building the great work of your life upon the fast-burning kindling of other people's opinions. A structure built of such flimsy material will inevitably collapse into ash. You must have the courage to build your life around the slow-burning, self-sustaining, deep red embers of your own silent inner fire. This fire is your genuine curiosity. It is your authentic passion. It is your deepest sense of purpose. This fire does not require the oxygen of external validation to burn. Its fuel is your own integrity. Its fuel is the inherent satisfaction of showing up and engaging with the work that feels true to you. Its fuel is the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you are living in alignment with your own soul, regardless of whether the world applauds you, ignores you, or criticizes you. The fundamental question of your life must shift from "what will they think" to "what is the truest expression of my being in this moment?" The first question makes you a servant to the world. The second makes you a servant to your own spirit. How do you cultivate this inner fire and wean yourself off the addiction to external praise? You undertake a practice. You engage in a secret project. First, identify one activity, project, or area of study that you are genuinely, authentically passionate or curious about. It could be learning to play the guitar, mastering the art of baking bread, writing poetry, learning a new language, or developing a new skill. The only criterion for this project is that the desire to do it comes from a true and deep place within you. Next, you must dedicate a regular, protected amount of time to this secret project. But you must adhere to one sacred, inviolable rule. You are not allowed to tell anyone about it. You cannot post your progress on social media. You cannot show off your new skill to your friends. You cannot seek feedback or praise from your family. You cannot even mention it in casual conversation. The project must live and breathe in a world that is populated only by you. The only reward you are permitted to receive is the satisfaction of the work itself, the joy of learning, the pleasure of creating, the quiet pride of progress. This practice will be difficult, especially at first. The part of you that is a hungry ghost for validation will scream for attention. The urge to share, to show, to say, "Look what I did," will be immense. Your work is to gently deny that urge. By doing so, you are intentionally starving the part of you that is dependent on the bonfire, and you are feeding, for the first time, the part of you that is warmed by the pilot light. You are cultivating a deep, quiet, and unshakable sense of self-worth that is not contingent on anything or anyone outside of you. You are discovering, through direct experience, the heat and light of your own silent fire. Think of it this way. Extrinsic motivation is a great bonfire on a beach at night. It is spectacular. It roars and crackles, casting a huge dramatic light and sending sparks high into the sky. It attracts a large crowd. People gather around to feel its impressive warmth and to admire its spectacle. But a bonfire is voracious and demanding. It must be constantly fed with external logs, the logs of compliments, of promotions, of social media likes, of public acclaim. If you stop feeding it, even for a moment, it quickly dies down, leaving behind a cold pile of ash and a disappointed, shivering crowd that soon wanders away. Intrinsic motivation, your silent fire, is like the small, humble pilot light inside the furnace of a house. It is hidden deep within the machinery. It is unseen. It is silent. No one gathers to applaud its existence. It provides no dramatic spectacle, but it has a completely different nature. It does not need to be fed from the outside. It sips its fuel directly from the main source, your own authentic purpose. And though it is small and silent, it burns with a steady, constant, and unwavering heat, day and night, regardless of the weather outside. It is this small, unseen, silent fire that has the power to heat the entire house. It is this fire that keeps you warm through the long, cold nights of self-doubt, when the crowds have all gone home and the bonfire on the beach is nothing but a memory of smoke. Stop gathering kindling for the bonfire. The spectacle is exhausting and the warmth is fleeting. Turn your attention inward. Find that small, steady, silent flame. Protect it. Nurture it. Trust its quiet, constant heat. That is the fire that will fuel your entire journey home. As you learn to tend your silent inner fire, as you begin to navigate your life by the quiet wisdom of your own compass, you will inevitably sail into storms. The journey of an authentic life is not a journey of fair weather. Life will present you with circumstances that you did not choose, that you cannot control, and that you do not like. Your body will age and ache. People you love will get sick or leave you. Your best laid plans will crumble into dust. This is the unavoidable, impersonal, and often painful weather of human existence. For most of our lives, we have operated under the deeply ingrained belief that the goal of a spiritual or successful life is to learn how to control this weather, to manifest only sunshine, to banish all clouds, to prevent all storms. But the deeper wisdom reveals something else entirely. The path to peace is not about controlling the weather. It is about learning to be the sky. It is the practice of radical, courageous, open sky acceptance. The source of almost all our mental and emotional suffering can be distilled into a simple, powerful equation. Suffering equals pain multiplied by resistance. Pain is an inevitable part of life. There is the physical pain of injury, illness, and mortality. There is the emotional pain of loss, rejection, and disappointment. This pain is a clean, pure sensation. It arrives, it is felt, and if allowed, it eventually passes. Suffering, on the other hand, is the secondary layer of torment we add on top of the clean pain. Suffering is the story we tell about our pain. It is our mental and emotional resistance to the reality of the pain. It is the voice that screams, "This shouldn't be happening. I can't stand this. Why me?" It is this resistance, this mental and emotional fight against what is, that multiplies the original pain tenfold, 100-fold, turning a manageable experience into an unbearable state of suffering. All suffering, at its root, is an argument with reality. We hold a picture in our minds of how life should be, and we are engaged in a constant, exhausting, and unwinnable war with how life is. Acceptance is the simple, profound, and courageous act of declaring a ceasefire in this unwinnable war. This is a deeply challenging concept for the ego. The ego's primary function is to control, to manage, to fix. Its greatest fear is powerlessness. And so, it fiercely resists the idea of acceptance because it makes a critical error. It equates acceptance with passive resignation. It believes that to accept a difficult situation is to become a doormat, to give up, to condone what is happening, to lose all drive to improve one's life. The ego believes that our anger, our dissatisfaction, and our resistance are the very engines of change. It believes that by hating a situation enough, it can force it to change. This is a form of magical thinking. It is the illusion that by shouting at the rain, we can make it stop. This internal conflict is between the ego's frantic, desperate need to control the uncontrollable and the soul's deep, quiet longing for the peace that comes only from surrender to the truth of the present moment. The core message, the truth that brings peace, is that acceptance is not weakness. It is a form of supreme strength and intelligence. It is not passivity, it is pragmatism. Acceptance is the ability to look at a situation with absolute, clear-eyed realism, without the distorting, emotional filter of your own desires and fears. Imagine you are lost in a dark forest. You cannot navigate your way out if you refuse to accept the fact that you are lost. If you stand there insisting, "I should be at home in my warm bed," you will remain lost. The first, most powerful step toward finding your way out is to stop, take a breath, and accept the full reality of your situation. Okay, I am here, in this dark forest. This is what is true right now. Only from that place of clear-eyed acceptance can you begin to look for the North Star, to listen for the sound of running water, to take wise and effective action. You must fully accept the reality of being in the prison before you can begin to search for the key to the door. Furthermore, acceptance does not mean approval. You can accept that you have received a difficult medical diagnosis without approving of it. You can accept that another person has behaved badly without condoning their behavior. Acceptance is simply the dropping of the argument with what has already happened or what is currently happening. Imagine you are in a tug-of-war with a giant, immovable monster named reality. You are pulling on the rope with all your might, your muscles straining, your feet slipping in the mud, your energy draining away with every futile heave. The monster does not even have to pull back. It simply stands its ground. You will never win this fight. Your resistance is only exhausting you and causing friction burns on your hands. Acceptance is not being dragged in defeat across the line. Acceptance is the sudden, intelligent, and liberating act of simply letting go of the rope. The moment you let go, the struggle ceases. The monster is still there. The situation is still there, but your war with it is over. And all the energy you were wasting in the fight is now available to you to be used for healing, for creating, for finding a new path forward. How do you practice this in the midst of a difficult life? You begin with a simple, in-the-moment mantra. The next time you find yourself arguing with reality, notice it. You are stuck in a traffic jam, your hands gripping the steering wheel, your mind fuming. This is ridiculous. I shouldn't be here. I'm going to be late. This is resistance. You are feeling a wave of deep sadness, and your mind is saying, "I hate feeling this way. I need to get rid of this feeling." This is resistance. In that moment of struggle, gently and silently, begin to repeat a simple phrase to yourself. You might use the words, "just this," or "this is how it is right now," or simply, "this too." This is not a magic spell to make the traffic disappear or to erase your sadness. The external or internal situation may remain exactly the same, but the mantra is a tool for dropping the rope. It is a way of acknowledging reality without judgment. Traffic jam, just this. Wave of sadness, this too. As you repeat the phrase, notice what happens in your body. Notice the secondary layer of suffering, the anger, the tension, the internal fight, and see if it begins to soften, even slightly. The pain of the situation may be a 10 out of 10, but your resistance to it might be adding another 10 on top. The mantra helps to remove that second layer, bringing you back to the clean pain, which is always more manageable than the tangled web of suffering. For most of your life, you have likely mistaken yourself for the weather. When you felt a storm of anger, you thought, "I am angry." When a long season of failure settled upon your life, you thought, "I am a failure." You have identified with the transient, ever-changing conditions of your mind and your circumstances. The great practice of acceptance is the process of realizing your true identity. You are not the weather, you are the sky. Your fundamental nature, your core of pure awareness, is like the vast, open, boundless sky. Its inherent qualities are peace, clarity, and spaciousness. The events of your life, all your thoughts, all your emotions, your successes, your failures, your joys, and your sorrows are the weather that passes through the sky of your awareness. There will be bright, sunny days that you wish would last forever. There will be soft, gray, cloudy days. And there will be violent thunderstorms with terrifying lightning and deafening thunder that you believe will destroy you. But the sky does not fight the storm. The sky does not try to push the clouds away. The sky does not desperately cling to the sunshine. The sky, in its immense, silent wisdom, simply allows the weather to be exactly as it is. It allows the storm to arise, to rage, and to eventually pass, all within its own vast, unwavering, and loving embrace. The most violent storm cannot harm the sky. The darkest clouds cannot stain it. When the storm has passed, the sky is still there, just as clear and blue and peaceful as it was before. Your work is to learn to rest in this sky-like nature. It is to allow the inevitable, unpredictable, and often painful weather of your life to move through you, knowing that your own deep, quiet peace is the very space in which it all unfolds. After you have learned to be the sky, after you have practiced allowing the volatile weather of your life to pass through the vast, open space of your acceptance, a new phenomenon occurs. In the profound quiet, you have so patiently cultivated a quiet cleared of the debris of resentment, the static of blame, and the endless arguments with reality. Something can finally be heard. It does not arrive like a thunderclap. It is not a command shouted from on high. It is a whisper that arises from the deepest strata of your own being. For years you have been trying to read the rare, silent book of your own life, turning its pages only to find them seemingly blank. Now, after all the sacred work of becoming still enough to listen, after all the courageous acts of clearing and unbinding, the first sentence finally appears. This arrival is not a product of linear, logical thought. It is not a conclusion you reach by making a list of pros and cons. It is an epiphany, an emergent property of a mind that is finally prepared to receive it. For years, your consciousness has been a noisy, chaotic, and cluttered room. There was no space for a subtle truth to land. But now, having swept the floors, opened the windows, and allowed the dust to settle, the room is ready. The appearance of this first sentence is the natural consequence of all your inner work. It is the sprouting of a seed that was buried deep in the soil of your soul, a seed that could not grow until you cleared the weeds and allowed the sunlight of your own awareness to reach it. It is crucial to understand that this first sentence is often a metaphor. For some, it may indeed arrive as a literal phrase that surfaces with startling clarity during a meditation or a walk in nature. Words like, "Your work is to create beauty," or "The next step is to leave," or "Heal yourself first," may land in the mind with an unshakable resonance. But for many, the first sentence is not verbal at all. It is a profound, visceral, and unmistakable feeling of clarity. It is the sensation of 1,000 inner conflicts suddenly resolving. It is the feeling of a compass needle, after spinning wildly for years, finally locking onto true north with a quiet, decisive click. It is a deep, cellular sense of rightness that settles over you, a calm knowing of what you must do next, even if the entire path forward remains shrouded in mist. It feels less like an idea and more like a homecoming. The moment this profound, simple clarity arises, you must be prepared for an immediate and powerful insurgency. The logical, analytical mind, the ego, which thrives on complexity, problems, and doubt, is deeply threatened by a simple, heart-centered truth. It will immediately launch a full-scale assault. It will shout its litany of doubts. Is this real, or am I just making this up? This is too simplistic. Life is more complicated than this. This is too grand. Who are you to think you can achieve such a thing? This is just wishful thinking, a fantasy to make you feel better. Furthermore, The truth, when it finally arrives, is often terrifying in its implications. The first sentence is rarely a call to maintain the comfortable status quo. It is almost always a call to courage. It may be a call to leave the secure but soul-crushing career you have built. It may be a call to end a relationship that is no longer aligned with your growth. It may be a call to step into the spotlight, to take a risk, to embrace a life of profound uncertainty. The clarity is a call to action, and the action required is often the dismantling of a life you have painstakingly constructed upon a forged signature. The internal conflict, then, becomes a defining moment in your life. It is the choice between trusting the quiet, deep, expansive feeling of this newfound clarity, or retreating into the familiar, noisy, and chaotic cage of your fearful, analytical mind. It is the ultimate test. Will you honor the whisper, or will you continue to obey the shout? The core message, the wisdom that will allow you to navigate this test is this: you do not invent this first sentence, you receive it. It is not a goal you achieve through striving or a conclusion you reach through intellect. It is a gift from your own deepest self, from the universe, offered only when you have made yourself receptive enough to hear it. It has been waiting for you patiently all along. This clarity will not be aggressive. It will not try to convince you with arguments. Truth is not a bully. It is a quiet, unshakable presence. Your sacred task is not to debate it or analyze it into dust, but simply to honor it. You must treat this whisper not as a fleeting, fanciful thought, but as a direct, unambiguous directive from the very core of your being. This first sentence is the North Star that has finally appeared in your night sky. You must be willing to navigate your ship by its steady light. You will not be given the entire map. You will not be shown the final destination. You will be given one sentence, one star, one next step, and that is all you need. To trust this one sentence is the ultimate act of faith, not in an external God, but in the divine intelligence that resides within you. How does one prepare the ground for such a reception? You cannot force an epiphany, but you can create the conditions that invite it. You do this through the practice of holding the question. First, you must formulate your question. Identify a deep, central, and unresolved question that is alive in you. It is best to avoid why questions, which tend to lead to endless, circular analysis. Why am I like this? Instead, formulate a what or how question. For example, what is my true work to do in this world? Or what is the next right step for my healing? Or how can I best be of service with my unique gifts? Feel the resonance of the question that is most alive for you now. Next, your task is not to answer this question with your thinking mind. Your thinking mind has already tried and failed 1,000 times. Its tools are inadequate for this task. Your task is to simply hold the question. Hold it gently in your awareness. Hold it like an open, empty, and precious cup that you are offering up to the sky. During your moments of cultivated quiet your morning meditation, your walks in nature, the silent moments in your car, the time just before you fall asleep, gently bring the question to mind. Do not strain for an answer. Simply let the question itself resonate in the silence. Then, let it go. Live your life. By doing this, you are sending a signal to the deeper intelligences of your subconscious and the universe itself. You are saying, I am open. I am ready. I am listening. The answer, the first sentence, will almost certainly not arrive while you are efforting for it. It will arrive in a moment of grace when your mind is relaxed and open while you are in the shower, or driving, or washing the dishes. It will land with a quiet click of profound recognition, a feeling of deep and sudden peace that says, ah, of course, this. Your practice is not the aggressive hunt for the answer, but the patient, trusting, and receptive waiting for its arrival. Imagine your consciousness as a glass of perfectly clear water. All the inner work you have done in dissolving old beliefs, unbinding the chains of resentment, accepting reality, cultivating silence, taking responsibility is like slowly, patiently dissolving a large quantity of salt into this water. You stir, and the salt seems to disappear into the solution. The water still looks clear, but it has been changed. It is now heavy, with unseen potential. It has become a supersaturated solution. This solution can remain in its clear, liquid state indefinitely, holding all that potential in suspension. But then, you introduce one tiny, perfect seed crystal into the water. This seed crystal is your quiet, patient, sincere question. It is the final, gentle act of seeking. The moment that single, perfect seed crystal touches the supersaturated solution of your prepared mind, a beautiful and instantaneous transformation occurs. A magnificent, intricate crystal structure blossoms throughout the entire glass in a flash. What was unseen becomes seen. What was potential becomes form. What was dissolved becomes solid. This sudden, breathtaking crystallization is your first sentence. It is the arrival of a clarity that was, in truth, always there, held in potential, just waiting for the right conditions and the right catalyst to reveal its true, undeniable, and beautiful structure. The first sentence has appeared on the silent page of your being. The crystallization has occurred. A deep and quiet clarity has settled in your soul, a north star in your inner sky, a truth that feels more real than anything you have ever known. And in the wake of this profound arrival, in the sacred afterglow of this revelation, a new and most subtle temptation arises. The temptation is to fossilize this truth. It is the urge to treat this newfound clarity as a precious, static object, something to be framed and admired, something to be analyzed and protected, something to be endlessly contemplated. The temptation is to become the world's foremost scholar of your own insight, to build a beautiful, ornate shrine around this single, perfect sentence. But the purpose of the book Discovering You is not for you to become its librarian. The purpose is for you to become its living story. The final and most crucial stage of this entire journey is not about reading the text. It is about having the courage to live it. This is the great chasm in which many a sincere seeker gets lost. The gap between knowing the path and walking the path. It is possible to accumulate a vast and impressive collection of spiritual and psychological knowledge. You can learn to speak eloquently about compassion, presence, integrity, and authenticity. You can quote the great mystics. You can dissect the mechanisms of the ego. You can understand the neuroscience of meditation. This is no sisa, deep intellectual knowledge. But this knowledge, on its own, is a beautiful and sterile thing. The real work is praxistha, messy, imperfect, and courageous act of embodying that knowledge in the gritty, unpredictable reality of your daily life. The trap is to become a collector of profound concepts. The ego, which you thought you were transcending, simply changes its costume. It is no longer proud of its material wealth, but of its spiritual wealth. Your identity becomes, I am a person who knows many deep things, rather than, I am a person who strives to live with a deep and simple kindness. Your knowledge becomes a shield you use to protect yourself from the world, rather than a tool you use to engage with it more lovingly. This leads to a painful and often hidden internal conflict. It is the conflict between the clean, pristine world of your ideals and the messy, complicated world of human interaction. In the quiet of your meditation, your commitment to patience is absolute. But in the chaos of a family dinner or a stressful work meeting, that patience shatters into 1,000 pieces. In the sanctuary of your journal, your understanding of compassion is profound. But in a real-life disagreement with your partner, you find yourself speaking with a sharp and defensive edge. This is the gap. And in this gap, the voice of the inner critic, the great accuser, finds its most fertile ground. You are a hypocrite, it screams. You know all this stuff about presence, but you just spent an hour lost in anxious thought. You talk about forgiveness, but you are still holding a grudge. You have failed. This all-or-nothing thinking, this demand for a flawless performance, is paralyzing. The fear of being a hypocrite often keeps us in the safe, theoretical world of ideas. It is easier to be a perfect scholar of the map than an imperfect traveler in the territory. The core message, the wisdom that bridges this chasm, is that your life itself must become the argument. The ultimate expression of your inner truth is not a beautiful philosophy you can articulate. It is a life that you live. The truth is not something you have. It is something you become and do. It is expressed not in the grandeur of your spiritual concepts, but in the humble quality of your attention in a simple conversation. It is revealed in the integrity of your actions when no one is watching. It is found in the compassion of your response to your own inevitable failures. The goal, therefore, is not to achieve a perfect, unwavering embodiment of your truth. That is an impossible standard for a human being. The goal is a sincere, courageous, and repeated attempt at embodiment, moment by messy moment. Your sincerity is infinitely more valuable to your soul than your perfection. The path is not about never falling down. It is about the grace with which you get up, the self-compassion with which you dust yourself off, and the quiet courage with which you take the next imperfect step. The journey is no longer about accumulating more knowledge. It is about courageously integrating the truth you already know into the very fabric of your being. How do you practice this integration? How do you translate the sublime poetry of your inner truth into the muddy prose of daily life? You do this through a daily practice of embodied inquiry. Each morning, perhaps after a few moments of silence, you bring your first sentence to mind. You connect with your core truth, your guiding principle for this chapter of your life. It might be a simple quality like courage, or peace, or love, or authenticity. Then, you ask yourself one simple, practical question: how can I embody this truth in one small, tangible way today? This is not about planning a grand, heroic gesture. It is about looking at the real, concrete events and interactions that your day will actually hold. You are translating the abstract into the actionable. If your truth is peace, its embodiment today might be the conscious choice to not engage in a pointless political argument on social media. It might be choosing to listen to calming music instead of an agitating news program on your commute. If your truth is courage, its embodiment might be making that one difficult phone call you have been avoiding. It might be speaking up with a dissenting opinion in a meeting where you would normally stay silent. If your truth is love, its embodiment might be putting your phone away and listening to your child with your full, undivided attention for 10 minutes. It might be offering a genuine compliment to a coworker. The actions themselves are small, but they are everything. They are the stitches that weave your inner truth into the outer garment of your life. And in the evening, you can take a moment to reflect, not with the harsh pen of a judge, but with the gentle curiosity of a scientist. Where did I remember my intention today? Where did I forget? You celebrate the small successes. You offer boundless compassion for the moments of forgetting, knowing that tomorrow offers a new opportunity. This is how the integration happens day by messy, beautiful, and sincere day. Imagine a scholar who has spent his entire life in a vast, quiet library. He has dedicated himself to collecting and studying every available map of a beautiful, distant land. He becomes the world's leading expert. He can describe every river, every mountain range, every forest, and every village in exquisite, loving detail. He gives brilliant lectures about the maps. He is admired by all for his vast and comprehensive knowledge, but he has never once set foot in the land itself. The spiritual journey, for a long and necessary time, is the work of studying the maps. We read the books, we listen to the teachers, we understand the concepts. This is crucial work, but the arrival of your first sentence, the crystallization of your own inner truth, is the moment the great library door swings open, revealing a dusty path that leads out of the building and into the land itself. To live the text is to have the courage to put down the maps, to step out of the library, and to begin the journey on foot. The territory, you quickly discover, is not as neat and predictable as the map. The weather changes without warning. The rivers are faster and colder than they looked on paper. The mountains are steeper. There are mosquitoes and muddy patches and moments of feeling completely and utterly lost. But there is also the feeling of the real sun on your skin, the taste of fresh water from a real stream, the scent of pine needles on a real forest floor. There is the joy of a real struggle and the pride of a real accomplishment. The goal of a well-lived life is not to arrive at the end with the most pristine and comprehensive collection of maps. The goal is to arrive with well-worn boots, a heart full of real stories, and the quiet, unshakable wisdom that can only come from having walked the territory yourself. The book has found you. The first sentence has been written. Now, go and be the story. You have stepped out of the silent library and into the living territory. Your boots are becoming muddy. Your heart is full of real experience, and you are learning to live the text of your own truth, day by sincere, imperfect day. And as you walk this new path, as you begin to embody the wisdom you have uncovered, a new and final question begins to form in your mind. It is the question of the destination. Where does this path ultimately lead? When do I finally arrive? When is the work of healing and growing done? When do I reach the final page of this rare book and close the cover with a sigh of completion? Our entire lives have been conditioned by the logic of goals, of endings, of final achievements. We are taught to seek closure, but the deepest truth of this journey, the final great paradox, is perhaps the most radical of all. The rare book that has found you, the book of your own unfolding consciousness, is not one that can ever be finished. Its very nature is to be an ever-opening book. This is a difficult truth for the human mind to accept. Our consciousness is shaped by a desire for endpoints. We graduate from school. We finish a project at work. We reach the end of a story. We apply this same linear, goal-oriented thinking to our inner lives. We seek a final, static state of permanent enlightenment, or unshakable peace, or complete healing. We want to solve the problem of ourselves and then move on. This desire for a final destination is the ego's last and most subtle trap. The ego wants to achieve a final status, a certificate of spiritual accomplishment that it can hang on the wall of its identity. I have arrived, it wants to say. I am a healed person now. This trap inevitably leads to frustration and a sense of failure, because life is not a static state. It is a dynamic, fluid, and endlessly unfolding process. After a period of great insight and clarity, a wave of confusion will inevitably arise. After feeling profound peace, an old familiar anger may surface. If you believe you are supposed to have arrived, you will see these natural, cyclical movements of consciousness as evidence of your own personal failure. This creates a deep internal conflict. On one hand, there is the exhausting burden of constant striving. We monitor our progress, we judge our setbacks, and we live with a persistent, low-grade feeling that we are not there yet. The thought, I believed I had moved past this issue, but here it is again. I must be doing something wrong, is a common torment for the sincere seeker. On the other hand, there is a deep human longing for rest, for a final release from the struggle. The idea that the work is never truly done can at first feel deeply disheartening. It can sound like a life sentence of constant vigilance and effort. The conflict is between the ego's desire for a conquerable summit, a flag to be planted, and the soul's quiet understanding that life is an infinite and beautiful dance. We want to finish the race, but the soul knows that the purpose was never to cross a finish line. It was to learn how to run with grace. The great liberation, the final letting go, is the realization that the path is the goal. The purpose of the journey is the journey itself. There is no ultimate destination called healed or enlightened, where the story ends and the work stops. There is only the continuous, beautiful, and sacred process of unfolding, moment by moment. The rare book of your life is not a static object to be read, completed, and placed upon a shelf. It is a living, breathing organism. Its nature is not to be finished, but to continuously open to new pages, new chapters, and new, unexpected plot twists. To truly love this book is to let go of your need for it to have a final page. It is to fall in love with the mystery of its constant unfolding. This understanding allows you to finally shift from a mode of frantic, goal-oriented striving to a mode of graceful, process-oriented being. You are no longer trying to get somewhere. You are simply learning to be more fully, more deeply, right here. Your peace is not found in a future achievement, but in your present loving acceptance of the unfolding process. How do you live this truth? You practice the art of beginner's mind. The Japanese word is shoshin. It is the practice of consciously and deliberately approaching each day and each moment as if for the first time, free from the weight of yesterday's achievements and failures. Each morning, as you wake, make a conscious intention to let go of yesterday. Release the profound insight you had in your meditation. Release the frustrating argument you had with your partner. Release the pride of your successes and the shame of your stumbles. Let it all dissolve. You are not the same person you were yesterday, and the gift of today is that you do not have to be. Then, cultivate a mind of not knowing. Approach the day not with a plan to maintain a state you previously achieved, but with a sense of open curiosity. Instead of starting the day with the thought, I must hold on to the peace I found yesterday, you can start with the gentle question, I wonder what there is to discover today. Instead of believing, I have finally healed my anger, you can approach a challenging situation with the thought, I am curious to see how I will meet this moment now. This is not a regression. It is an act of profound wisdom. It keeps your spiritual life fluid, alive, and responsive to the present moment, rather than allowing your past insights to harden into a rigid, lifeless dogma. Throughout your day, try to meet each moment anew. Truly taste your morning tea as if you have never tasted it before. Truly listen to the voice of a loved one as if you are hearing its unique and precious timbre for the first time. This practice is the antidote to the ego's desire to arrive. It keeps you perpetually at the beginning, which is the only place where real life and real learning can occur. Imagine you are standing on a vast, empty shoreline. In the distance, you see the perfect, shimmering line of the horizon, and you are told that your life's purpose is to walk to that horizon. It is beautiful, a line of pure light and infinite possibility. And so you begin to walk. You walk for a day, for a year, for a lifetime. You cross deserts and mountains. You ford rivers. You navigate forests. And you notice a strange and beautiful truth. The horizon is always the same distance away. No matter how far you walk, no matter how much progress you make, the horizon recedes as you advance. You could walk for 10,000 years and you would be no closer to reaching it. In a moment of stillness, you stop, and a profound insight dawns upon you. The goal was never to reach the horizon. That is a physical impossibility. The true purpose of the journey was to walk, with love and with awareness, in the direction of the horizon. The purpose was the quality of your footsteps on the earth. The purpose was the feeling of the sun on your skin, the lessons learned from the storms, the beauty of the stars on a moonless night. The horizon was never a destination to be conquered. It was the sacred guiding star that gave your journey its meaning, its direction, and its beauty. Your inner unfolding is this horizon. The book of your life is this journey. Let go of the need to arrive at the final page. Fall in love with the feel of the path beneath your feet. Fall in love with the act of walking. That, and that alone, is the final and most beautiful liberation. And so, we return to where we began, to the quiet, vast library within you. But the room is different now. The shouting volumes of borrowed words have fallen silent, their wisdom integrated or discarded. The heavy books of past regrets have been respectfully shelved, their lessons learned, their pages no longer bleeding into the present. The frantic paperbacks of future anxiety have been closed, their speculative fictions seen for what they are. The noise has subsided, the dust has settled. You stand now in the stillness before that one rare book, the one with no title, the one written in a language you have journeyed so far to understand. You reach out your hand, not with the grasping energy of a seeker who is about to finally possess a treasure, but with the quiet reverence of someone returning home. And as your fingers brush against the cover, a final, profound truth dawns, a truth that dissolves the seeker and the sought into one. You are not the reader of the book. You are the book itself. Your skin is the cover. Your bones are the binding. The story was never something for you to find and consume. It is something for you to be. The language it is written in is the language of your own breath, your own heartbeat, your own unique and unrepeatable consciousness. This is not an ending, it is the true beginning. The entire journey was not about arriving at a final, victorious destination, but about becoming the traveler who is worthy of the path. The goal was not to find the perfect answer that would solve you, but to become the one who can live gracefully within the mystery of the questions. The pages ahead are not just unwritten, they are uncreated. They are a vast and luminous potential, waiting for the ink of your presence, for the calligraphy of your conscious choices. The purpose is no longer to finish the story, for a living story can have no end. The purpose is to live it with such authenticity, with such courage, and with such love, that your very life becomes the masterpiece. The library is silent. The book is open. It has always been open. It has waited for you with the infinite patience of a mountain, through all your searching and all your striving. It has waited for you to quiet the noise, to heal your wounds, and to finally recognize your own face on its living pages. It has found you. Now, live the story that only you can write.